Nangong Ziyu's warm air was like Chu Yao's, except she was like water, gentle and soft. It was like there was nothing in this world that could make her angry. She would always be like the calm surface of a lake. Long Chen's praise made Nangong Ziyu smile slightly, and she was about to say a few humble words when Beitang Rushuang pounced. Long Chen, are you cursing me for being coarse and wild? No, definitely not. Naturally, he could not admit such a thing no matter what. The attendant covered her smile. In her eyes, peerless geniuses like them were either icily arrogant or had strange temperaments. They were always hard to get along with. However, the three of them were together, with Nangong Ziyu being warm and Beitang Rushuang being frank like they were close. As for Long Chen, this seemingly unbearably coarse fellow was able to make them laugh with one word and jump with another. Although she knew that she shouldn't laugh, she almost made a sound several times. Fortunately, the three of them were amicable. Others might have long since kicked her out. More experts began to arrive. Suddenly, Long Chen stopped talking, focusing on one very large figure. This newcomer was 3 meters tall and 3 meters thick. He was a giant fatty with a bald head. His large arms were bare, while his neck was non-existent. He wore a garb that Long Chen had never seen before. If he was just a fatty, then that wouldn't be too bizarre. However, there were actually pearl-sized swellings on his skin, with each lump being a sparkling kernel. The entire room's atmosphere grew heavy with his arrival. Long Chen sensed an immense feeling of danger from him. When this newcomer turned his face over in his direction, Long Chen felt a chill. His face also had large lumps just like a toad, but more shockingly, his eyes were 2 violet amethysts. The stone race's Lingfeng. He has actually come out. Even Beitang Rushuang and Nangong Ziyu's expressions changed. Just who is he? Asked Long Chen. You don't even know of the stone race? Beitang Rushuang raised a brow. He was once more being looked down at. Long Chen was speechless. Was this fellow really so famous? It was Nangong Ziyu who said, when it comes to the stone race, there probably aren't many records in the current era. They are taboo. Even in the ancient era, no one liked talking about them, so it's understandable that you don't know them. The stone race is not human. They are a strange life form. No one knows where they came from, but it was like a mass of stones had suddenly come to life. No one was capable of figuring out where they came from, because they were vicious killers that attacked on sight. They appeared and vanished on the continent a few times. Every time they appeared, a storm of blood swept the continent. This Lingfeng is said to be the stone race's second strongest existence in all of its history. During his generation, the entire continent was almost crippled by him. If all the experts of that time had not joined together to heavily injure him, the entire human race of the continent might have been eliminated. The stone race was the nightmare of the continent at that time, but then they suddenly vanished. I didn't expect them to finally reappear after so many years. Their second strongest in all of their history? Then who was the strongest? Asked Long Chen. The strongest was the famous stone emperor, Shi Changxing. He is one of history's 3 emperors, answered Nangong Ziyu. Long Chen sucked in a cold breath. The 3 emperors were the only existences said to be able to challenge the sovereigns. That's why you absolutely can't provoke him. He's extremely terrifying, warned Beitang Rushuang. I never provoke others. But if others provoke me, I'm not going to let them bully me. That includes every one of my enemies here. They were the ones who first provoked me. But tell me, if he has such an enmity with the human race, how could Dongfang Yuyang invite him here? Asked Long Chen. That's due to the passing of eras. The Dark Era is coming, and if the martial heaven continent's life forms wish to survive, they must unite. We cannot be fighting amongst ourselves at such a time, or once the Dark Era comes, the martial heaven continent will be powerless to resist. The world will be destroyed. Before this tribulation comes, we must set aside all our enmities. But is doing such a thing really possible? In all of history, only 5 people have ever been able to unite the continent, said Nangong Ziyu. The only ones who were truly peerless in this world were the sovereigns. Only they had been able to unite all the races. Scram! A voice like stones rubbing together rang out. With a startled cry, one of the female attendants was sent flying, her blood spraying. This attendant had tried to pour tea for Lingfeng when he had sat down, but as soon as she had picked up the teacup, she was sent flying by an invisible force. The impact knocked her unconscious. "I hate water the most. Did you not know?" demanded Lingfeng. There were over 10 experts sitting in their own seats, and seeing this scene made them frown. Just how could Lingfeng attack such a weak attendant? However, none of them made a move. This place was the Dongfang family's territory, and it wasn't up to them. Very quickly, an elder walked over, but unexpectedly he actually apologized to Lingfeng. "My sincerest apologies, this little girl didn't know about this taboo of the stone race. Please forgive her. Do you want another attendant?" Long Chen couldn't help shaking his head. Just what medicine had the Dongfang family taken this morning? How could they not give such a person a good slap in the face? The stone race's people can't touch water. Water is the bane of their crystal runes. That girl clearly wasn't warned about this before, but it really is beneath someone of his status to attack such a weak girl, said Nangong Zuyu. Lingfeng's conduct had clearly drawn her disgust. Lingfeng snorted at the elder. "Just take all this away so I don't have to look at it." The elder immediately took away all the tea, and only then did Lingfeng sit down. However, he immediately stood back up and looked in Long Chen's direction. More accurately, he was looking at Nangong Zuyu. What wretched luck! Lingfeng's expression grew ugly upon seeing Nangong Zuyu, and a barely concealed killing intent appeared in his eyes. Silence rang out after Lingfeng's words. Everyone looked at Nangong Zuyu. This Lingfeng was just like the legend said. He was vicious and domineering, not giving face to anyone. He was actually directly provoking Nangong Zuyu. The formation around Long Chen's group was a simple one that prevented outsiders from hearing them. But they could hear what was said outside. This Lingfeng is courting death. Beitang Rushuang's expression was chilly. Although she and Nangong Zuyu were enemies, Lingfeng was provoking not just Nangong Zuyu, but also the everlasting families. On the other hand, Nangong Zuyu merely smiled lightly, tasting her tea as if she hadn't heard his provocation. Seeing no reaction from Nangong Zuyu, Lingfeng smiled mockingly. He then turned to Long Chen. "Little fellow, you're Long Chen?" demanded Lingfeng. Long Chen frowned and asked Beitang Rushuang, "What is wrong with this fellow? Is he an idiot? I didn't even do anything, but it seems he wants to find trouble for me. Perhaps it's because your face is blacker than his. Maybe evil people are drawn together by fate?" Beitang Rushuang couldn't help finding it funny. "Brat, I'm talking to you. Are you deaf?" demanded Lingfeng. "Are you an idiot? Who said I had to answer you? Are you my son?" sneered Long Chen. However, as soon as he said this, he regretted it. Lingfeng's face was so ugly, wasn't he cursing himself like this? "Ah, I misspoke just now. What I meant is, are you an idiot? Fairy Zhu can't even be bothered to look at you. Are you taking that disdain for fear?" Nangong Zuyu couldn't help shaking her head. Long Chen really had no patience. Beitang Rushuang smiled though. "You're courting death." Lingfeng suddenly roared, and killing intent enveloped Long Chen. "Brother Shi, please stop." Dongfang Yuyang appeared in the room like a spring breeze, a displeased expression on his face. "Brother Shi, why bother? This place was the Dongfang family. Lingfeng was too big for his britches. Long Chen insulted me, so I want to kill him." Even with Dongfang Yuyang present, Lingfeng's killing intent didn't dissipate. "Brother Shi, this place is the Dongfang family, not your stone race. I hope you can be clear on that. This gathering is being hosted by my Dongfang family, and it's for everyone to help each other and develop. The Dongfang family is doing this for the martial heaven continent, but we are not pushovers. If someone takes advantage of our kindness, then don't blame us for kicking you out." Although Dongfang Yuyang was rather tactful, there was anger in his eyes. The way Lingfeng had treated one of their attendants was already pushing things. They had made a concession by not punishing him for it. However, Lingfeng continued pushing things, and there was no way they could accept it. Dongfang Yuyang's tone was firm and embodied the resolve of his everlasting family. If Lingfeng continued acting like this, he would have to scram. Lingfeng nodded. Then I'll give you face and not quibble with him here. Pointing at Long Chen, he said, Brat, just wait. Once we're out of the Dongfang family, I'll smash you to bits. Long Chen didn't reply to Lingfeng's provocation directly. He looked Lingfeng up and down and then whispered into Beitang Rushuang's ear, Are those crystal things on his scabs worth some money? Having Long Chen in such close contact made Beitang Rushuang turn red, but then she jumped at his words. He was actually placing his sights on Lingfeng? You idiot with the formation back up, why are you getting so close? Oh, sorry, it was a habit. Can you answer my question? Long Chen hadn't realized that. But after doing bad things, he didn't like to discuss them. This fellow belongs to the stone race, a strange life form. Their origins are unclear, but they were born by the earth. What can be said for sure though is that every part of their bodies is an absolute treasure. Their flesh is tough like stone. Blade and saber cannot pierce it, water and fire cannot damage it. They essentially have no weaknesses. On the ground, they can absorb the earth's energy. In the sky, they can absorb the energy of the stars. As for those so-called scabs of his, they are natural crystals, with each one being its own world. It is said that each crystal contains the Tao, and through them, it is possible to see the mysteries of the world, said Beitang Rushuang. In other words, he's worth a lot of money? Good, I'll be doing some big business soon then. Long Chen's eyes lit up like a hungry wolf that had seen meat. You can't be serious. Beitang Rushuang felt a chill from that look. I'm always serious when it comes to making money. I'm so poor right now. If I don't make some money, I'll starve. But don't worry, I'll make sure to pay your portion, and of course Fairy Zuyu's portion too. I won't pocket all the profit myself, promised Long Chen. No, I don't need a portion. Beitang Rushuang shook her hand. What kind of joke was that? If it was known that a genius of her grand everlasting family was conducting such business with Long Chen, the Beitang family would become the laughingstocks of the continent. Furthermore, the closer she got to Long Chen, the more she felt that he wouldn't lie about something like that. He really would do it. She definitely didn't want to be implicated. However, Nangong Ziyu merely smiled without saying anything, not expressing any of her thoughts toward his plan. Long Chen couldn't help finding it funny. Beitang Rushuang definitely wasn't a match for Nangong Ziyu intellectually. She couldn't even tell when he was joking. Would he really drag others down with him? After the waves caused by Lingfeng, things returned to calm. Experts walked in one by one. When they looked around, they nodded to the people they knew before quietly finding their own seats. With Long Chen sitting in the back, he saw everyone as they walked in. Beitang Rushuang and Nangong Ziyu introduced them to him. These people were all heroes of their generation. In fact, even Long Chen had heard some legends about them. The majority of them were very cold, merely looking around indifferently before sitting down. Do all experts have to act like they're supreme and indifferent to everyone else? Asked Long Chen. Nangong Ziyu said, Actually, that's not the case. It's just that being unrivaled is very lonely. After reaching the peak, you can't find another target. That loneliness shaped their characters. No one else was able to stand alongside them, and no one was capable of even following them. They didn't have a single qualified opponent. That is its own kind of pain. But you're not like that, right? You don't have that narcissistic loner feeling, said Long Chen. Me? What I pursue is different from them. I've always been looking, but I've never found what I'm searching for. I'm still working hard at it, but they have already reached the peak. And what about yourself? Your character isn't like theirs either, said Nangong Ziyu, laughing when she mentioned Long Chen's character. She had never imagined that such an expert existed in this world. Me? You all dominated your era, and no one was able to fight back in the end. But I'm not able to dominate any era. At any time, I might be surrounded and beaten like a wild dog. Just look at me now. It's only been a few days, but all kinds of trouble are plaguing me, sighed Long Chen. On his way, he had run into those idiots of the mechanism sect. He had been schemed against, almost losing his life. He had already made himself a powerful enemy even before arriving at the Dongfang family. His fortune took a rare turn for the better, allowing him to obtain the moon and star refining furnace along with the 9 Lotus soul condensing pill. But then, that good fortune resulted in another powerful enemy wanting to buy it from him. Huang Fian had used the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow race to threaten him. Did she think he would submit? So a second enemy had been made. Then this stone idiot had come out of nowhere as well, directly targeting him. Long Chen asked himself just what he had done to get surrounded by enemies. Even before he killed the last batch, new ones already came. Everyone, the time has arrived. The second day's auction is about to start. At this moment, a white-robed middle-aged man walked in. The auction was finally starting. It seemed it was starting a bit ahead of schedule. Perhaps it was because the atmosphere was too tense. The middle-aged man that had walked in was someone that Long Chen recognized. It was the same person who had appraised his pill. He was now wearing his formal clothes and standing on the stage. Everyone present is an amazing heavenly genius with great experience. I'm sure your time is precious, so I'll get right to it. The starting item is an ancient scripture. Everyone, please take a look. 2 beautiful attendants walked in, carrying a plate-sized tortoise shell. A dense mass of characters was written on the shell. Through the projections of the walls, it was possible to see that they were immortal characters. Many people present were capable of translating it, but Long Chen was not one of them. Through our study and appraisal, this tortoise shell is a translation of part of an immortal scripture. It was translated from immemorial immortal characters. The regretful thing is that part of the shell is damaged, and even if that was fixed, it is still just a part of the immortal scripture. Thus, as a research tool, it is very valuable, but its practical value is low. If anyone is interested, you can buy it and research it yourself. Of course, if someone has had the good fortune of gathering the other parts of the scripture, that would be a different matter. The age and name of the scripture is unknown. The starting bid is 10 underworld spirit beads, and each increasing bid must be 5 underworld spirit beads greater, announced the middle-aged man. This was not an auction for profit, so there weren't too many exaggerations or ploys. The advantages and disadvantages were laid bare for everyone to see. 15 underworld spirit beads. Nangong Ziyu was the first bidder. The middle-aged man sighed with relief ever so slightly. In truth, this was a very difficult auction to be hosting. The people present were all extraordinary figures of great experience. They had seen countless treasures. If no one was interested in their very first item, they would be even more indifferent to the rest of the wares. If no one bid the entire time, that would be awkward. 20 underworld spirit beads. Apologies, Fairy Zhu, I also want to research this tortoise shell, said a man sitting in a corner. It's not an issue. Auctions are fair, as is competition. The one with the higher bid wins. As long as the bid remains within my limit, I will just keep increasing mine, said Nangong Ziyu calmly. 25 underworld spirit beads. The man in the corner shouted out 30 underworld spirit beads after a moment's hesitation. Nangong Ziyu immediately added another 5, and in the end, her competitor shook his head. Going to 40 would be above what he thought the shell was worth. However, at least he didn't make up some lie about being a gentleman and letting her have it. He chose to be silent. Congratulations on obtaining this treasure. Very quickly, the attendants brought the treasure over to Nangong Ziyu. Long Chen looked closely at the tortoise shell, and his lips curled. 35 underworld spirit beads for this tortoise shell? It really doesn't look worth it. You can't even make a stew with this. There were 3 damaged spots on the edges of the shell. One of those spots was where the scripture was, and that was also the most important spot. With that part damaged, this shell was essentially trash. Nangong Ziyu simply smiled. You can't put it this way. Every scripture has its own history and is its own representation of the Tao. I like to research these things. The ancients' wisdom isn't something that we can imagine. Although this scripture is incomplete, just comprehending the slightest bit of its essence would be enough to benefit me. The 35 underworld spirit beads were worth it. You like research so much? You make me think of someone very erudite that I know. If the two of you were to meet, I'm sure you would be friends. Long Chen suddenly thought of Yu Xiaoqian. Yu Xiaoqian's learning was frighteningly deep. It was like there was nothing in this world that she didn't know. However, there were also some things that she refused to discuss in detail. Who is that? I hope you can introduce me to them, said Nangong Zuyu. For a person to be praised by Long Chen like this, they had to be extraordinary. It will be up to fate. If there's a chance, I'll introduce the two of you, said Long Chen. Yu Xiaoqian's status was special, and she couldn't show herself yet. She was focused on advancing with the profound spirit Dao scripture, the immortal scripture she had obtained in the yin-yang world. As long as she fully comprehended it, she would be able to conceal herself perfectly. No one would be able to tell that she came from the original devil race. Then she could walk freely throughout the continent. I bid 20 underworld spirit beads. A raspy voice drew Long Chen's attention as he was talking with Nangong Zuyu. The second auction item had gone out. It was a fist-sized stone egg covered in cracks. Due to their chatting, they hadn't heard the introduction, so they didn't know what kind of treasure it was. The one bidding was Lingfeng. That object had to be useful to him. 30 underworld spirit beads. Someone also bid, causing Lingfeng to immediately stand up and glare at the bidder. He was irritated. Are you trying to go against me? Demanded Lingfeng. The competing bidder looked at Lingfeng and indifferently said, No one's interested in you. This place isn't the stone race, nor is it your era. You should reserve your temper, or it won't be as simple as hiding from a beating. Even your ancestor, the Stone Emperor Changsheng, was not qualified to be so arrogant. It was only because the corrupt emperor was a follower of a god that the Stone Emperor took his place amongst the three emperors. If it weren't for the corrupt emperor refusing to be called emperor, there's no way your Stone Emperor would have climbed into their midst. The so-called Stone Emperor is just a name your stone race made for yourselves. The martial heaven continent has never acknowledged him, so what qualifications do you have to be arrogant? Upon hearing this, Long Chen suddenly recalled that there was no Stone Emperor amongst the so-called three emperors. The three emperors were the Peng Emperor, the Corrupt Emperor, and the Blood Emperor. Long Chen hadn't heard this story about the Corrupt Emperor though. What does he mean by the Corrupt Emperor refused to be called Emperor? Asked Long Chen. Beitang Rushuang shook her head. The Corrupt Emperor was a follower of the corrupt god. Claiming himself emperor would be disrespectful to his god. As for why it's disrespectful, no one really knows. This person is Luo Zonghui and is said to be a strange genius. He awakened his manifestation at the age of 14. At that time, his cultivation base hadn't even reached the Xientian realm. His cultivation path is completely different from other people's, said Nangong Zuyu. Luo Zonghui's outer appearance was ordinary. His eyes were calm but also contained an ancient air to them that was a bit odd. His words were said calmly without any anger, but they were a naked slap in the face of Lingfeng. Furthermore, it was a very resounding slap. Luo Zonghui, do you dare to fight me? Lingfeng's face was originally ugly, but now it got even uglier. Luo Zonghui indifferently said, I'm not interested. The middle-aged man hastily said, Luo Zonghui has bid 30 underworld spirit beads. If there are no higher bids, this treasure will go to Mr. Luo Zonghui. 50 underworld spirit beads, snorted Lingfeng. Luo Zonghui didn't bid again. It was unknown if he felt that this thing wasn't worth that much or he just didn't feel like competing with Lingfeng. More treasures followed, none that were particularly outstanding. However, eventually a treasure appeared that made Long Chen's eyes light up. The middle-aged man was holding a transparent bottle. There was a drop of strange liquid inside that was roaming around like a tadpole. This is heavenly spirit water. It is not a treasure from this world and is similar to meteorites that come from outside our world. This is a magical matter from the cosmos that contains pure life energy. Whether it's for cultivation, comprehension, or forging, it can be immensely beneficial. I'm sure many people recognize this treasure, so I won't over-explain or waste everyone's time. 1 drop of heavenly spirit water, starting bid of 50 underworld spirit beads, announced the middle-aged man. This was the final treasure, and after it was sold, he would have accomplished his mission without any major mishaps. 60 underworld spirit beads, shouted Beitang Rushuang. However, she was bidding for Long Chen. Long Chen saw Zhao Wuji, Huang Fian, and even Lingfeng's figures amongst the crowd. If he did it himself, whatever he bid on would be targeted by others. 65 underworld spirit beads. 70. 100. Beitang Rushuang instantly raised the price to 100 underworld spirit beads. This was an indication that she would fight for it to the end. As expected, after this high bid, the others bidding on it frowned. Although this heavenly spirit water was rare, it was just a single drop. 100 underworld spirit beads for it was a bit much. Adding on Beitang Rushuang's attitude, they didn't have an urge to keep fighting for it. It wasn't a must-have for them. As a result, this drop of heavenly spirit water really did go for 100 underworld spirit beads. The auction ended, and everyone began to leave. Long Chen asked Beitang Rushuang and Nangong Zuyu to wait a bit. They only left once everyone else was gone. Long Chen, how are you going to thank me? Beitang Rushuang waved the bottle of heavenly spirit water at Long Chen, smiling naughtily. I'm sorry you're too late. Again, we simply cannot be together that way, said Long Chen helplessly. Shut up. If you keep talking nonsense like that, I'll really beat you. Beitang Rushuang raised a fist. Long Chen laughed and accepted the heavenly spirit water. Looking at it, he was a bit emotional. This heavenly spirit water didn't have any use on him, but it would be very effective at healing the wounds of the moon and star refining furnace. Let's go. I'll treat you to fish, said Long Chen. Fish again? If you don't want fish, I can treat you to dirt. Bastard. The three didn't go eat fish and found a secluded place to drink tea instead. Beitang Rushuang's hostility toward Nangong Ziyu had clearly lessened, to the point where at the very least, the two could talk normally to each other. Long Chen, I won't lie to you. I had a goal in getting close to you, but don't even mention anything about romance again, warned Beitang Rushuang. Perhaps Beitang Rushuang had never met someone as shameless as Long Chen. She had no way to deal with him. To make a long story short, I want to hear everything about Sovereign Yunshang. Last time, our conversation on that topic was cut short. This time, if it's not too much, I hope you can go into greater detail, said Beitang Rushuang. It's true. Everything about the sovereigns is shrouded in mystery. Everyone is curious about them. Even I want to know, added Nangong Zuyu. You want to know everything I know about Sovereign Yunshang? Why didn't you say so sooner? There's nothing for me to hide. Long Chen directly told them about the battlefield in the spirit world where he had obtained Evil Moon. He told them about how Sovereign Yunshang had sealed Evil Moon and given it to him. That black blade of yours was a gift that Sovereign Yunshang left for you? Then doesn't that mean you will be the future sovereign? Exclaimed Beitang Rushuang. Yes, I also think so. I shall be the next sovereign, the one to summon rains and wind, to soar through the heavens, to dominate the continent, to be surrounded by beauties. Long Chen nodded. Now that you say this, I feel like you probably aren't fit to be a sovereign. Beitang Rushuang's shock and amazement instantly transformed into disdain. Long Chen a sovereign? She refused to believe it. They weren't alike at all. Long Chen didn't have any of the mannerisms of the sovereigns. Furthermore, what sovereign had such a scoundrel mouth? If I start talking properly now, will it be in time to become a sovereign? Asked Long Chen nervously. A chuckle escaped Beitang Rushuang. Stop making me laugh. If I laugh, I'll get wrinkles. Long Chen's nervous expression was just too odd. Nangong Zuyu shook her head. Sovereign Yunshang was the first-generation sovereign. He was able to see through space-time, into the future. For him to leave Evil Moon to you must have some deeper meaning. However, the fact that he left two things, but one was taken by Leng Yuan doesn't make sense. Long Chen didn't say much regarding Leng Yuan. As for the corrupt path, ever since she had escaped her execution, they had not mentioned her ever again. It was like she was a taboo. Leng Yuan seemed to have vanished from the continent. No one knew what she was up to. Long Chen, you're very close to Leng Yuan, correct? Asked Beitang Rushuang. How do I put this? I suppose we are very close. Long Chen suddenly thought of how Leng Yuan had taken his first time. He suddenly missed her. He didn't know how she was right now. How was her fight with her true body? Longchen, thank you. Through your soul we saw the sovereign. We can now die with no regrets, said Nangong Zuyu, extremely grateful. Just now, Long Chen had opened his soul to them, allowing them to see Sovereign Yun Shang from his memories. That was an opportunity that they had never expected. Having been allowed to see the true appearance of a sovereign, they confirmed that the sovereigns were truly transcendent figures just like the legend said. The charisma that Sovereign Yun Shang had possessed was even greater than the legends. Every word he said, every move he made contained the ability to make them devote their lives to him. In this world, there was a certain style, a certain heroism, a certain conviction, and when all of them were together, they were bestowed the title of sovereign. After thanking Long Chen, Nangong Zuyu left. She said that having borne witness to a sovereign, she had to focus her thoughts. She might be near a breakthrough. Beitang Rushuang also said the same thing. Watching them leave, Long Chen was a bit dumbfounded. Could seeing a sovereign really cause a comprehension breakthrough? How come he hadn't felt anything then? He hadn't had any comprehension advancements even after flipping the sovereign's chessboard. Was he an idiot? Since the two of them had gone, Long Chen asked for another alchemy room for himself. However, he wasn't refining pills but medicinal powder. He then slowly merged the medicinal powder with the drop of heavenly spirit water. The heavenly spirit water was originally transparent, but with the addition of the powders, it turned milky white. Then countless granules began to appear in it, clashing with each other. Long Chen dripped this concoction into the moon and star refining furnace. The drop instantly dissolved and was absorbed by the furnace. It really is magical. It can't be treated with common sense. The heavenly spirit water was instantly absorbed. The furnace shook slightly, and an air of life whirled around it for a moment before it once more fell into slumber. It's too bad there was so little of the heavenly spirit water. If I had a dozen drops, it might have been enough to wake up the furnace. But this isn't bad. At the very least, it has drastically shortened the time it will take for the furnace to wake up. The money was well spent. Long Chen smiled, sensing the slight air of life within the furnace with a gratified smile. The third day's auction would actually be taking place 3 days from now. Then the auctions would come to an end, and the true point of this gathering would begin. It could be said that Long Chen had come early. He hadn't really been paying attention, and so he had taken this registration time as the time that the gathering actually started. Currently, many experts were still slowly trickling over. Long Chen found it curious that Yi Lingshan hadn't come yet. She should have come right at the start. However, perhaps she was busy solidifying her awakened manifestation. Doing her best to increase her power so she could stand tall amongst these monsters wasn't a bad idea. Yi Lingshan wasn't present, and neither was the Pill Fairy. Many other experts also hadn't come. He didn't know if they weren't coming or if they were waiting for the real start. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's refine a few 11th tier pills first. Taking advantage of his leisure time, he started refining more pills. According to reason, he should be refining the 6th star's pill, the Nethergate pill. However, he lacked one of its main ingredients, the heavenly nether vermilion fruit. He had asked Zheng Wenlong to help him look for it, but Zheng Wenlong had never even heard of it. For even Zheng Wenlong to not know of it, it probably didn't exist on the Martial Heaven continent. With these ancient powers coming out, Long Chen could only hope that one of them would have it. However, right now he couldn't openly ask for it. He could only wait and see. The majority of the ingredients I have are just secondary ingredients. Other than the 1000-hand soul condensing pill, the only thing I can refine is the 100-flower Dao Resonation pill. Long Chen found another pill he could refine amongst the countless pill formulas in his head. 11th tier pills required far too many ingredients. Some required over 1,000. Furthermore, Long Chen only had some of the planned ingredients. Other ingredients included spirit beast essence blood, crystal cores, precious ores, and other mystical objects. Before he obtained the formulas, he hadn't thought about gathering those things. Once he had, he found that it was useless to know, because he didn't have the ability to gather them. Long Chen had already given a list to Zheng Wenlong of things to help him gather, but odds were that he would have to find ways to gather them himself. The 100-flower Dao Resonation pill was one of 3 11th-tier pills that used the least ingredients. It only required 100 pistils from different precious medicines. It just so happened that Long Chen had them all. With his experience refining the 1,000-hand soul-condensing pill, things went much smoother. Long Chen also found that the moon and star refining furnace was helping him more. He was refining the ingredients into powders much faster, and the quality had clearly improved slightly. Excellent. The heavenly spirit water is truly a magical existence. It's already having a slight effect. The moon and star refining furnace had clearly recovered slightly from the heavenly spirit water's nourishment. Although it couldn't consciously help him, some of its natural abilities were restored. After refining the powders, Long Chen started refining the pill. However, this time, he wasn't going all out like last time. He held back slightly, prepared for any accidents. The first furnace of pills was quickly finished. There were 9 pills, 3 of them high grade and the rest middle grade. Long Chen nodded. This result surpassed his expectations. If he wanted to refine a top-grade 11th-tier pill, then with his current ability, he could refine only 1 pill at a time. However, if he wasn't going for a top-grade pill, he could refine 9 pills at once with less risk. Long Chen consumed one of the pills. He felt his blood quicken and then rumbling rang out. Flowers began to bloom within his essence blood. Flowers also appeared on the exterior of his body. The 100 flowers lingered, and Dao runes appeared on their petals. Long Chen suddenly let out a pleasantly surprised cry. So that's the case. The 100 flowers bloomed and resonated with the Dao, forming one ring which enveloped Long Chen. Intense fluctuations caused the surrounding space to shake. Long Chen let out an excited cry. Although he couldn't sense heavenly Dao energy, a scene appeared in his mind. This 100-flower Dao Resonation pill was supposed to be useless to Long Chen. Unlike others, he couldn't get closer to the heavenly Daos, so he had only eaten 1 pill to test its efficiency. However, when those flower marks appeared around his body, it was like a bolt of lightning had pierced his mind. Things that he hadn't understood instantly became clear to him. Long Chen had been continuously thinking about how to evolve the world Annihilation Flame Lotus. He had tested many things, all of which ended in failure. Right now, he was only able to condense 9 star falls on top of the 9 petals of the World Annihilation Flame Lotus. What he wanted was to add even more star falls, but he was unable to figure out how he could do that. No matter what he tried, it instantly threw the lotus into disorder, causing it to explode. With the aid of the 100-flower Dao Resonation pill, Long Chen realized that he had been stuck on a dead path. He had been wanting to condense an energy source at the stamen of the lotus, which was the core of this technique. However, no matter what he did, he was unable to control it. I've always been going inside to out. How stupid! Why didn't I try going outside to in? Long Chen looked at the flower marks covering his body. These flowers were absorbing heavenly Dao energy into his body. Although it would quickly fade upon entering his body, it still gave Long Chen a chance for enlightenment. A flame lotus condensed in Long Chen's hand. It was the World Annihilation Flame Lotus. Long Chen was almost able to condense it instantly. There were 9 petals, with a small sphere above each one. Those were the star fall spheres. Powerful flame energy flowed within them, making every one of them like a flaming star. Condense! Another star fall condensed on top of each of the 9 petals. Boom! Those new star falls instantly exploded, and Long Chen's hand was blown to pulp. Long Chen's expression didn't even twitch. To evolve the World Annihilation Flame Lotus, he didn't even know how many times he had been injured. He had long since gotten used to it. This way is wrong. Again. Long Chen once more condensed the World Annihilation Flame Lotus. This time, he didn't blindly test anything. Instead, he focused on sensing the interior. The energy lines were just like the meridians inside a person. They had powerful energy flowing within them. Since this pill was able to gather energy from 100 different sources, my World Annihilation Flame Lotus must be able to do it too. I just haven't found the correct path yet. Long Chen grew increasingly confident. There were many similarities between his flame lotus and the energy of the 100-flower Dao resonation pill. By contrasting and comparing them, he quickly thought of possibilities that made his eyes shine. The golden flame lotus in his hand grew brighter and brighter. Long Chen was using the heaven incinerating flame's power to experiment because a failure with it would only blow up his hand. He wouldn't dare to use the black illusion dragon flame, let alone the inverse Dao water spirit flame, as that would be suicide. As the golden lotus revolved, runes began to appear in the star falls on top of the petals. The flame energy within the first star fall began to give birth to an additional sphere of light. That sphere gradually grew larger, until it fell away from the original star fall. Long Chen's expression was serious. He stared closely at the new star fall. Using the principles behind the 100-flower Dao resonation pill, he had the first star fall act as a mother giving birth to a new star fall. Although all of Long Chen's previous tests had ended in complete failure when he had tried to do this, he wasn't dejected. The new star fall had just been born when the flame lotus suddenly became imbalanced. The lotus twisted and expanded violently before exploding. Rather than being depressed or angry, Long Chen grew excited. He once more summoned the flame lotus. The 9 star falls on top of the petals lit up at the same time as they began to give rise to new star falls. 9 new spheres fell from the original star falls. In a breath's time, they grew to the same size as the original star falls. Success! Long Chen couldn't help letting out an emotional shout. He looked at the World Annihilation Flame Lotus with its 18 star falls. This signified that its power had doubled from before. However, when he tried condensing the third set of star falls, the lotus exploded. This time, Long Chen was prepared, and he summoned the Azure Dragon Scales to protect his hand. Despite that, his blood freely poured out after the explosion. What is going on? Long Chen was dumbfounded. He had tried to condense an extra set of star falls from the original set, but when this third set appeared, it once more ended in failure. Can each star fall only give rise to one more star fall? Wondered Long Chen. He tested it again. This time, he tried to condense the third set from the second set of star falls. However, it failed once more. Long Chen refused to give up. After calming down for a while, he continued. This time, after condensing the second set of star falls, he activated the first and second set together. The 2 spheres on each petal actually merged back into one and then slowly began to split back into 2. Their appearance was different now. Their energies were pulling at each other even as they separated. A third sphere was slowly born between them, separating the 2 spheres. At this moment, Long Chen found that he didn't have to control them any longer. They began to activate on their own. The third sphere vanished, transforming into an arc that devoured the first and second spheres. A Taiji diagram appeared. A 4th sphere appeared, a 5th sphere appeared, a 6th sphere. The Tao gave birth to 1, 1 gave birth to 2, 2 gave birth to 3, 3 gave birth to all things. A flash of comprehension struck Long Chen. He had accidentally run into the middle of this principle. Long Chen's expression suddenly changed. Just as he was amazed by this principle, the flame lotus had grown larger and larger, with more and more star falls appearing on top of it. It was sucking away his spiritual strength and flame energy. When the 7th set of star falls appeared, Long Chen's soul panged painfully. Even Huolong was getting uneasy because the flame lotus was sucking away too much of its energy. The terrifying power of the World Annihilation Flame Lotus caused spatial cracks to form in the air. Long Chen began to dispel his energy hastily, and the star falls on top of it began to vanish one by one. 6, all the way to 3. Then the Taiji diagram that the first 3 star falls had taken the shape of also vanished. That terrifying power receded. That was close. Long Chen sighed with relief. If he had allowed the World Annihilation Flame Lotus to keep absorbing his energy, it would have gone out of his control. When it exploded, it might have taken his life. Haha, I've finally created my own ultimate move. Long Chen raised his head and laughed. The World Annihilation Flame Lotus had once more progressed. It might become his most terrifying trump card. A grand heroic feeling filled Long Chen. With just 7 sets of star falls and the heaven-incinerating flame, it was already so powerful. Then what about with the black illusion dragon flame? Or the inverse Dao water spirit flame? After a moment of delight, Long Chen also thought of a problem. The bigger the move, the more control it required. The heaven-incinerating flame was his weakest usable flame. If he tried to use the black illusion dragon flame, he might just incinerate himself. Well, it's still another trump card. I'm growing more and more confident for the rest of this gathering, chortled Long Chen. Long Chen continued to test the world annihilation flame Lotus for the rest of his time. He found that every additional set of starfalls would increase its power immensely. It was not so simple as 1 + 1 = 2. The new starfalls took on a strange formation, one that even Long Chen found too profound to fully understand. He would need to take things slowly. However, one thing was sure. The world annihilation flame Lotus would become an extremely terrifying killing move in his hands. The few days passed quickly, and the runes on the walls began to blink when the time was up. The third auction is starting. Everyone coming has probably arrived by now. Long Chen came out of the alchemy room, still immersed in his pride and excitement from evolving the world annihilation flame Lotus. What? Did you find some money? Coincidentally, Beitang Rushuang came out of another private room at the same time. Seeing his bright smile, she couldn't help being speechless. Just how did someone who didn't know how to conceal his emotions become an expert? It's even better than money. I've developed my own supreme move. If anyone tries to mess with me again, I'll beat them until even their grandmas won't recognize them. Long Chen chortled, pleased with himself. The advancement of the world annihilation flame Lotus marked a new milestone on his cultivation path. Throughout history, only the most astonishing and amazing of experts had managed to create their own powerful techniques. Their names were recorded within history. That was an honor only a few could receive. Long Chen was extremely confident in the world annihilation flame Lotus. Although it was still incomplete, he was sure that he would be able to bring it to the level where it could shake the world. Keep bragging. If I ever believe you again, I'll admit defeat. Beitang Rushuang rolled her eyes. Who knew whether this fellow ever said one word of truth amongst his bragging? The two of them walked together into the auction room, and they could see a few people who had arrived before them. The room had been rearranged with new seats, but after his last experience, Long Chen immediately asked for a seat near the back this time. Brother Long, long time no see. One scholarly man immediately stood up upon seeing Long Chen and waved. Hu Feng, you've come as well. Long Chen was a bit surprised. He finally saw a familiar face. You are the heir of the gambling heavenly Dao? Beitang Rushuang was startled. The heirs of the gambling heavenly Dao had all been famous throughout history. Their origins were mysterious, but they were incredibly powerful. This little one is the 27th generation heir, Hu Feng. Greetings, Fairy Rushuang. Hu Feng bowed slightly to Beitang Rushuang, speaking humbly. Beitang Rushuang returned the etiquette, curiously asking, You two are friends? I've known Brother Long for a long time. It can be said that he's my idol. Hu Feng smiled. Beitang Rushuang looked at Long Chen strangely. It seems you must have some good points for you to have friends. Long Chen's expression twitched, but he didn't reply. How could he not have any friends? Was everyone in this world his enemy? Hu Feng merely smiled and returned to his seat. Long Chen saw many new faces, but now wasn't the time to ask Beitang Rushuang about them. He walked over to his seat and found that Nangong Zuyu had been waiting for them. It's been 3 days, but Fairy Zuyu's beauty has only grown with time, said Long Chen. Nangong Zuyu really didn't know how to reply to Long Chen. His praise lacked any sincerity due to how exaggerated he made it, but it was intentional. After 3 days, Mr. Long Chen seems happier than ever. You must have made great gains. You noticed, exclaimed Long Chen. With how obvious you are, even a blind person would have seen it, snorted Beitang Rushuang as she sat down. Nangong Zuyu smiled. This is your special trait. A clear heart without any inhibitions can be taken as a kind of realm. For someone to bring shamelessness to such a level, this realm will never be surpassed, said Beitang Rushuang as she picked up a grape. Long Chen laughed and sat down as well. He quietly watched more people walk in. The Dongfang family is truly powerful. They were able to pull in so many experts. Their influence is amazing. Nangong Ziyu sighed. Long Chen wanted to ask which of the 4 everlasting families was strongest, but this definitely wasn't the right place to ask it. Long Chen. A happily surprised cry rang out. Long Chen turned to see Lingshan. Long Chen immediately stood up and introduced her to Beitang Rushuang and Nangong Ziyu. Yi Lingshan almost couldn't believe her eyes. She had long since made a list of the heroes of the ancient era, noting their special characters. Seeing Nangong Ziyu and Beitang Rushuang sitting together very amicably together with Long Chen, she was stunned. The Martial Heaven Alliance's Yi Lingshan greets Fairy Ziyu and Fairy Rushuang. Yi Lingshan hastily bowed. She had seen many of the monsters of the ancient era on her way here. All of them were powerful enough to make her heart shake. She felt like she had been at the bottom of a well before. Fortunately, her master had been wise enough to make her solidify her foundation after awakening her manifestation. Her aura was strong and condensed. If she hadn't awakened her manifestation before coming here, she would have been a laughingstock. Nangong Ziyu and Beitang Rushuang returned Yi Lingshan's bow. Yi Lingshan clearly looked up to the two of them and spoke with honorifics toward them. Nangong Ziyu comforted her and told her that there was no need to be so courteous. They could just call each other sisters. The feeling of distance between them was quickly shortened. "You only got here today?" asked Long Chen. "I arrived yesterday. Dongfang Yuyang led me around the city for the first day. To tell the truth, the foundation of the everlasting families is quite frightening." Yi Lingshan couldn't help sighing. Her eyes had been opened to the world. She had seen things that she hadn't even heard of before. Compared to the everlasting families, the Martial Heaven Alliance was poor. "He strolled around with you for a day? Is he trying to seduce you?" questioned Long Chen. "Nonsense. Dongfang Yuyang isn't like that. Your way of thinking is just too dirty," rebuked Yi Lingshan. Long Chen asked her about the current state of the Martial Heaven Alliance and was told that everything was going well. The entire world was keeping track of the goings-on of this gathering, and things were peaceful outside. "Tian Xiezi has come." Suddenly, Yi Lingshan pointed toward a newcomer by the door. It was a tall and slender man with a scholar's band on his head. He held a white paper fan in his hand. It was clearly a scholarly decoration, but the fan had images of mountains of corpses and seas of blood on it. The evil air around him was apparent. There were also some flickering blood runes within his eyes. When they opened and closed, a devilish light glinted, making people shiver. Xiezi is the corrupt emperor's descendant. The corrupt emperor was suppressed by the sovereign of his generation for a lifetime. It's said that Xiezi inherited the corrupt emperor's supreme techniques and can be considered his heir. "He's extremely dangerous," warned Beitang Rushuang gravely. Long Chen looked at Xiezi, knowing that they were fated to be enemies. They were on opposite sides, and one of them would have to die. Xiezi's gaze swept through the room. He immediately saw Long Chen and Yi Lingshan. A devilish smile appeared on his face. He didn't speak, instead swiping his white fan across his neck in a throat-cutting gesture. Long Chen replied with a smile and a raised fist with the middle finger sticking up. The blood runes in Xietianzi's eyes began to spin. It was like being stared at by death. "Don't look right at him. His eyes possess a divine ability to steal people's souls," warned Nangong Ziyu. Just at that moment, Yi Lingshan felt the space around her begin to twist. It was like the world was spinning, and she felt like she might puke. After hearing Nangong Ziyu's warning, she hastily focused herself on blocking. With just a glance, Xietianzi had caused such a reaction. Furthermore, his main target was Long Chen, not Yi Lingshan, but she was still affected. Long Chen looked right back at Xietianzi. This was a spiritual clash as well as a clash of wills. The space between the two of them wildly twisted. The blood runes filled Xietianzi's eyes and transformed into one strange image after another. There were wild beasts roaring, sinister ghosts wailing, and despite there clearly being no sound, it felt like they could hear the wailing in their souls. One star after another appeared in Long Chen's. In the end, 5 stars shone brightly. That was the mark of the 5-star battle armor. However, this time Long Chen hadn't summoned it outside. It was purely a mental clash. This kind of clash was no less dangerous than a battle with blades. Whoever lost would receive a grievous blow to their Dao heart. If they fought for real, the odds of losing would be many times greater. The entire room was tense as the other experts simply watched. No one said anything or attempted to stop them. Nangong Ziyu and Beitang Rushuang looked at Long Chen. An invisible wind made his robes flutter. He appeared calm with his hands clasped behind his back, and his expression was icy. That imposing figure he cut made him seem like a completely different person. The two ladies were both supreme experts and saw that Long Chen was on the defensive. However, he was like a steady boulder. His grand spiritual strength shocked them, but then they recalled that he was an alchemist. Move aside. Tian Xiezi's smile grew as they continued staring at each other. He was about to make another move when an icy voice rang out, one that felt like it was about to freeze people's souls. A woman slowly walked into the room. Her face was like a painting. Her robes were snow-white, while her black hair fell naturally past her shoulders, creating a stark contrast. She was like a transcendent immortal walking amongst the mortal world, but this beautiful fairy was too cold, so cold that her face was like 10,000-year-old ice that would never melt. Ice crystals revolved around her. Her eyes were like gems, but they contained endless iciness. One look from her felt like it could freeze a person's soul. This person was the ice fairy Yijiqiu. Her icy glare made Xietianzi's heart shiver. He slowly retracted his mental energy. "You're in my way," said Yijiqiu coldly. Yijiqiu's arrival delighted Long Chen. So she had also been invited. Xietianzi smiled slightly and didn't continue. He walked to his seat. Yijiqiu gracefully walked over to Long Chen, but Long Chen had already gone over to welcome her. "You've finally come out of seclusion." Long Chen held Yijiqiu's hand, emotional. Her return signified that she would no longer have to go back to the divine ice palace. She would be together with them once more. A trace of warmth appeared in Yijiqiu's icy eyes. She nodded, tightening her grip on Long Chen's hand. A faint rosiness appeared on her cheeks. "Here, let me introduce you." Long Chen hastily introduced Nangong Ziyu and Beitang Rushuang to Yijiqiu. Yijiqiu nodded. She was born icy, and as she cultivated, that icy nature only grew. She rarely ever spoke to others. Yi Lingshan was an old acquaintance who knew that Yijiqiu's character was just like this. As for Nangong Ziyu and Beitang Rushuang, they could understand this iciness. Most ice cultivators were just like this. Long Chen had the attendant add another seat. He and Yijiqiu sat together, holding hands. Even in front of Nangong Ziyu and Beitang Rushuang, they were not acting bashful. Yijiqiu blushed slightly, but she didn't pull her hand back. With Yijiqiu present, Long Chen acted much less like a scoundrel. Beitang Rushuang was startled, not knowing how she felt about that. With Yijiqiu's newfound control over her ice energy, it was no longer a struggle just to hold her hand. Last time, Long Chen had almost been frozen. Now, although he still felt a bone-chilling cold, it was endurable. He didn't need to circulate his power to block it. Long Chen had a stomach full of questions he wanted to ask Yijiqiu, but now wasn't the time. Long Chen particularly cherished Yijiqiu because back in the Jiuli's secret realm, she had died in his arms. That scene was something he would never be able to forget in this lifetime. Yijiqiu's addition to their seats drew quite a bit of attention. Most people were sitting by themselves. Only Long Chen's side was filled with beautiful flowers who were also peerless geniuses. People were naturally envious. When Zhao Wuji walked in and saw Long Chen holding Yijiqiu's hand, quietly whispering to her, while Nangong Ziyu, Beitang Rushuang, and Yi Lingshan talked and laughed amongst themselves, flames of rage filled Zhao Wuji's heart. This was too exaggerated. Just how was it that Long Chen was surrounded by so many beautiful women, when every other person present was someone who had dominated their generation? During their lives, wherever they went, others would follow. They were the brightest stars in the sky. However, at this gathering of past and present heroes, they found themselves ordinary. As these top geniuses gathered, they were all lonely figures, maintaining an air of mystery and arrogance around them. But Long Chen actually pulled in a group of the greatest geniuses throughout history. Two of those were even from the everlasting families. The geniuses had egos corresponding to how strong they were. The men who could be invited here were the main characters of their times. Today, they found themselves being reduced to supporting characters. Enjoy your final days. Once you die, there will naturally be someone to look after your women, muttered Zhao Wuji. Although he spoke as if muttering to himself, his voice was not quiet. It was loud enough for the entire auction room to hear. Everyone turned to look at Long Chen. This was a provocation, and an extremely humiliating one at that. Long Chen's figure had already vanished from his original spot by the time they looked. He reappeared in front of Zhao Wuji and immediately kicked him. Everyone jumped because of this sudden attack. Zhao Wuji was also startled, not expecting Long Chen to really dare to attack him here. Boom! Zhao Wuji was sent flying by Long Chen's kick. He had been unable to properly use any force in his seat. Although Zhao Wuji's scale armor had appeared on his arms, blocking Long Chen's kick, it was unable to stop Long Chen's power from blowing him away. He crashed through one sturdy wall after another, breaking buildings and even some fake mountains. Long Chen came flying through the hole he made, sending a powerful punch at Zhao Wuji's face. Courting death! Zhao Wuji roared furiously. He had been caught off guard before. Now his armor transformed, becoming covered in sinister blood-colored barbs. Stop! Just at this moment, the space between Long Chen and Zhao Wuji twisted. They were originally on track to striking each other, but somehow their positions shifted subtly just enough for them to miss. Long Chen was startled. This was spatial power. It had resolved both their attacks without any fuss. This power was truly powerful. Brother Long, Brother Zhao, are you trying to tear down my Dongfang family's ancient city? A white-robed Dongfang Yuyang appeared, looking displeased. The other experts inside the room also came walking out, wanting to see how Dongfang Yuyang would resolve the current predicament. Long Chen had struck the first blow in the room. That was clearly disrespectful to the Dongfang family. It could even be called a kind of provocation. Long Chen goes too far. He attacked me first, roared Zhao Wuji. It was Zhao Wuji's wretched mouth that went too far, said Beitang Rushuang coldly. She was clearly standing on Long Chen's side. Just now, even Beitang Rushuang and Nangong Zuyu had been shocked. Long Chen had suddenly seemed to transform into a death god, becoming a demon who would slaughter devils and immortals. That fierce aura of his had made them jump. The normally joking scoundrel had become a completely different person just now. Zhao Wuji, if you're in a rush to reincarnate, I'll help you out today. There's no need for our fight to wait until after this gathering. We can start right now, said Long Chen, his gaze as sharp as a sword. Long Chen has truly become infuriated. His greatest taboo is for others to threaten him, especially those closest to him. This Zhao Wuji has touched his reverse scale, transmitted Yi Lingshan to Beitang Rushuang and Nangong Zuyu. Yi Lingshan had a greater understanding of Long Chen. He could wave off other people's threats toward him with a laugh, but if someone insulted his family, he would instantly explode. The current Long Chen left a deep impression on Nangong Zuyu and Beitang Rushuang. Floating in the sky, his black robes and hair were whipping around him. He finally met the standards of how an expert should act. Nangong Zuyu's eyes began to sparkle and unleash a few imperceptible ripples. She gradually smiled. From Long Chen she had comprehended a kind of Tao. A Tao of freedom, of being unrestricted, of transcending all bindings, a Tao that did not care what other people thought. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Pick any time and place. If I don't kill you, I won't be Zhao Wuji. Last time, Long Chen had slapped him in the face and used some pill toxin to turn his face black. Although he had managed to recover later, that enmity had not been forgotten. Zhao Wuji had never been humiliated in his life. The countless strange gazes of the experts in that room as he had been kicked out infuriated him the most. Zhao Wuji was not actually acknowledged as deserving the same level of respect as the other supreme geniuses present. He was able to match them due to his viciousness and despicable means, but he didn't have their high prestige. However, even those supreme geniuses didn't want to provoke him. It was mostly due to his infamous reputation for his fearsome means. To put it frankly, he had come to this gathering to shake the world and show everyone just how powerful he was, to make the name of the mechanism sect resound throughout the continent once more. However, ever since he had encountered Long Chen, he had faced setback after setback and lost his face. That was completely different from his expectations. He now wanted to have a fight against Long Chen not just for vengeance, but also to prove how strong he was. Then come. Let's fight outside the city. Long Chen stepped away, but just at that moment, a figure blocked his path. Long Chen was stunned, and all the other experts' hearts involuntarily shook. White robes that were untouched by the dust of the mortal world and enveloped by a water-like curtain of light set off in unmatched beauty. That light was not actually water, but fire. Although the high heat had been concealed, it was possible to sense intimidating energy fluctuations that could incinerate seas. The pill fairy Yu Qingxian. Many people recognized her because she was extremely easy to recognize. There was a ring of divine light behind her that sprinkled her with a holy and noble air. She was a divine daughter, one who looked down on everyone else in the world. This was the power of a god within the halo of light behind her. It was an unblockable power that granted her the special status of divine daughter. She was a disciple of a god and had received the god's blessing and care. With the god's power backing her, she was qualified to look down on everyone else within the same realm. Even amongst this group of supreme geniuses, she was still an existence that everyone focused on. Her arrival caused countless experts' hearts to shake. The gods were transcendent existences, and although they could not descend upon the martial heaven continent, their disciples were always above everyone else due to their blessing. The pill fairy's arrival coincidentally came just as Long Chen was about to leave, and she was now blocking Long Chen's path. She looked at Long Chen without the slightest emotion in her eyes. Long Chen was also looking at the pill fairy, however, his eyes contained lament and regret. "Do you want to say something?" asked the pill fairy. Long Chen sighed. "There's nothing to say. If something has to be said, then tell me how that girl Wan Qing has been lately? She must have grown up quite a bit." Only when he brought up Wan Qing did the slightest warmth appear in the pill fairy's eyes. She seemed to have lost herself in some memory. "Wan Qing is doing very well. She's growing even more beautiful, and I'm also preparing to transmit all my alchemy arts to her. If nothing unexpected happens, she will be the future Valley Master of Pill Valley." Long Chen shook his head slightly. "She is a talented alchemist, but she's definitely not suited to wielding power. You are throwing her into a pit of fire." Although he hadn't known Wan Qing for that long, he knew her character. There was no way she could pick up the burden of being the Valley Master. That would only bring her pain. People can always change. She might not have been able to do such a thing before, but that doesn't mean that she won't be able to do it in the future. People need to work hard to change their own fate, or they will only be run over by others, said the pill fairy indifferently. Looking at the pill fairy's face, Long Chen sighed. Changing one's fate is correct, but the initiative should be in the hands of the one whose fate is being changed. Otherwise, if it is only for someone else, all that hard work won't change their fate. People live only one life, plants grow only for one spring. Their time is limited. If you can't be free, that time can only be a kind of grief. A slightly lost expression appeared in the pill fairy's eyes, but they quickly became icy once more. Even if free, people should understand their responsibility. Some things were fated from times long past. People should not be afraid of continuing that path forward, said the pill fairy. If it's long since faded, why bother cultivating? Cultivation is in itself to defy the heavens, to break through shackles, and to transcend bindings. If people's fates were set before being born, what is the point of risking our lives to cultivate? Long Chen shook his head. Long Chen and the pill fairy were both standing in the sky, facing each other. As for the other experts, most of them knew of the relationship between the two of them. However, now the two were enemies. When Long Chen had caused chaos in the Brahma secret realm, the Pill Fairy had tried to kill him. Countless people had witnessed that. The two of them speaking again made everyone forget about the matter of Long Chen kicking Zhao Wuji. Your so-called freedom also needs a limit. Past that limit, the only thing that exists is death. The gods are everywhere, and the laws of the heavenly Daos cannot be exceeded. You have repeatedly damaged my Pill Valley's prestige and even blasphemed the divine statue. The only thing that awaits you is death. That is the only way to wash away your sins, said the Pill Fairy chillingly. Naturally, the matter of blaspheming the divine statue referred to how Long Chen had carved, bastard, onto Lord Brahma's statue in the Brahma Divine Palace. That matter was unknown, and while these experts didn't know what exactly she was referring to, just the fact that Long Chen had dared to blaspheme Pill Valley's divine statue made these experts jump. Seeing the cold light in the Pill Fairy's eyes, Long Chen shook his head. You are no longer the old Pill Fairy. There's no need to say any more. Long Chen could no longer find the slightest familiar feeling within her eyes. Perhaps the high priest was right. Once the Pill Fairy became the divine daughter, she would be one with the god's will. It could be said that she was just a personification of the god, or more accurately, a puppet that the god controlled. Long Chen, let's continue our fight. Today Zhao Wuji will kill you. Zhao Wuji finally had a chance to interject. Just at that moment, a zither twanged. That sound startled everyone and they hastily turned. What they saw was a woman walking gracefully over to them. Every step she took seemed to embody the music of some kind of grand Dao. Every smile, every frown, every single one of her movements contained some kind of Dao charm. Ziyan. Long Chen sensed another feeling in his heart, one that he didn't know how to describe. He didn't know whether or not it was a good thing that she had come. Was she a friend or a foe? The Zither Fairy's arrival naturally interrupted Zhao Wuji's challenge. Ziyan smiled at Long Chen. We meet once again. Have you been well? Long Chen was startled. It seemed that she didn't come bearing hostility. I have been well. Many thanks for your care. Along with the arrival of the Pill Fairy and the Zither Fairy, more and more experts were drawn over. This place became packed. Dongfang Yuyang said, the new auction room has been prepared. I'd like to ask everyone to move over there, but I hope there are no more unexpected accidents this time. Other than that, Brother Zhao, Brother Long, this place is the Dongfang family, and we won't interfere in any personal enmities. However, I hope that the two of you can give my Dongfang family some face and leave your matters until after this gathering is concluded and you've left the Dongfang family. Can't you resolve things afterward? Dongfang Yuyang acted very modestly, but this time, Long Chen and Zhao Wuji had definitely gone too far. They had almost torn down the auction room. This was now a matter of face. After all, this gathering was being hosted by the Dongfang family. Everyone who had come was their guest. If others went too far, it would be taking advantage of them as a host and would be treated as a provocation. Zhao Wuji had been warned, and Lingfeng had also been warned. As for Long Chen, Dongfang Yuyang viewed him as someone very important, so Dongfang Yuyang hadn't said any heavy words to him. However, Long Chen had fought inside the Dongfang family several times now. He was clearly trying to probe Dongfang Yuyang's bottom line, which was not giving him any face at all. At first, Dongfang Yuyang's treatment toward Long Chen had made people think that he was biased and that the two of them had to have some kind of secret relationship. However, with how often Long Chen was causing trouble, people now thought that the two of them definitely didn't get along. Otherwise, Long Chen would have at least resisted to act to give Dongfang Yuyang face. Sorry, I simply have this kind of temper. If someone has an issue with me, they can come at me but not insult my people. Otherwise, even if it was the king of the heavens, I wouldn't let them get away with it, said Long Chen. Since that's the case, I'll withdraw from this gathering. To tell the truth, this so-called gathering of past and present heroes has disappointed me. Everyone's expressions changed slightly. Long Chen's meaning was that of the people here, only a few had entered his eyes. Since he hadn't given any names, no one was willing to reply. However, His words clearly contained a feeling like he was looking down on them. But if they said anything, it would be taking a general comment as a personal attack. Long Chen, what are you trying to do? If you want to leave, then leave. If you want to stay, then stay. Just being allowed to come is an honor to you. Why act like you're some bigwig? Sure, Lingfeng was the first to respond. He knew that he was definitely amongst the number of people that Long Chen was talking about. You're disappointed? I'd say that you're the most disappointing of everyone here. A generation's expert without the slightest manners of an expert naturally can't get along with us. Criticizing others just shows what a petty little person you are. Such a person is not fit to attend this gathering, said Huang Fian of the Xian beasts. A selfish person like you won't be able to make any major accomplishments. If you want to leave, then leave. No one will stop you. Another person in the crowd spoke out, dissatisfied with Long Chen. Quite a few other experts were looking at Long Chen coldly. Although they didn't say anything, it was possible to see the disdain in their eyes. Their meaning was clear. It did not matter if he was in this gathering or not. In truth, the way that Long Chen had been talking and laughing with Nangong Ziyu, Beiting Rushuang, Yi Lingshan, and Yi Zhiqiu had drawn the dislike of many people. Now that Long Chen had said that he wanted to leave, most people wanted him to hurry up and scram. Let's go. Yi Zhiqiu held Long Chen's hand. She knew Long Chen's character. He wouldn't just sit by and endure while Zhao Wuji insulted his lovers. That was his reverse scale that no one could touch. This flaw had already been found out by everyone, and they knew that using this method to antagonize Long Chen would always be effective. This was a fatal weakness, but it was also what made Yi Zhiqiu's heart his. A man who was willing to risk his own life for his women was a blessing. Long Chen smiled at Yi Zhiqiu, seeing the warmth in her eyes. The two of them prepared to leave. Yi Lingshan sighed, since that's the case, I'll leave too. Many thanks for your hospitality, Mr. Young. Yi Lingshan moved, and then Nangong Ziyu and Beiteng Rushuang also followed. It was Beiteng Rushuang who said, how boring. If I had known the gathering would be like this, I wouldn't have come. The two of them both walked away, causing Dongfang Yuyang's expression to change. Beiteng Rushuang was actually standing by Long Chen's side. As long as Long Chen left, she would leave as well. Nangong Ziyu was also with Beiteng Rushuang, expressing her attitude without saying anything. That made everyone's expressions change. If two of the four everlasting families left, then this gathering of past and present heroes hosted by the Dongfang family would become a joke. Adding on the Martial Heaven Continent's #1 alliance leaving, what would even be the point of holding this gathering? If this gathering doesn't have Long Chen, then it really is meaningless. I can only leave. Sorry for not living up to your standards, brother Dongfang. Amongst the crowd, Hu Feng cupped his fists toward Dongfang Yuyang apologetically. It seems that I came at a bad time. As soon as I get here, I have to leave. Ziyen sighed, looking at Long Chen. Although she didn't know what was going on here, her meaning was also clear. People were shocked. Since when did Long Chen possess such influence? Even Long Chen was shocked. The only reason he had left was for his own sake. He knew that he couldn't stay because Zhao Wuji would say even more baiting words. He wouldn't be able to sit there and be insulted like that. That was directly against the 9-star Hegemon body art's will. He hadn't expected Nangong Ziyu and Beiteng Rushuang, two supreme geniuses who represented two supreme powers, would also stand beside him. There were only two possibilities: either the two of them were also outraged for him, or the four everlasting families were not actually as united as he had thought. Perhaps they also had some kind of mission in coming here, but whatever their reasons, he was grateful that they were standing beside him. For Nangong Ziyu and Beiteng Rushuang to stand beside him was shocking, but understandable to him. However, when Ziyen also spoke up, he found it incomprehensible. Looking at Ziyen, Long Chen felt that there was something different about her, but as for what that was, he couldn't say for sure. Everyone here is a supreme genius. There's no need to let something minor harm our friendships. Wouldn't other cultivators laugh at us if we let that happen? This matter is all my fault, said Dongfang Yung. I was busy with many things and didn't take care to make sure that people showed consideration for other people's taboos. This conflict should have never occurred, and it's my fault that it did. I hope that everyone can give me a little face and let this matter go. Brother Long, is that acceptable? Said Dong Fengyun. Dong Fengyuyang had already taken a very deferential position. Long Chen's actions had clearly been in the wrong, but Dong Fengyuyang placed the responsibility on himself. That was already giving more than enough face to Long Chen. If Long Chen still left, it would be incredibly rude. He had no choice but to say, Brother Yuyang is a dragon amongst men. I wasn't trying to force you to do anything. It's just that some people go too far. I want to leave because I don't want to bring you more trouble. If certain idiots keep talking the way they have been, I won't be able to hold myself back. At that time, I would just make things harder on you. Long Chen didn't want to go yet. He wanted to see how much his pill would sell for and to see if he could buy anything good. But Zhao Wuji was too vile. If this place wasn't the Dongfang family, Long Chen would have long since slaughtered him. Dongfang Yuyang was practically flawless with how he had handled things, and when it came to Long Chen's matter, he had clearly been biased toward protecting him. He said, Don't worry about this. Starting today, I will be in charge of accompanying everyone. I trust that everyone will give me this face. Alright, if you say something like that, I'd feel bad leaving. Long Chen walked back. Zhao Wuji, Shi Lingfeng, and the others' expressions were a bit unsightly, but if they continued targeting Long Chen, it would be a slap in Dongfang Yuyang's face, so they only snorted. This matter was suppressed just like this by Dongfang Yung. Beitang Rushuang smiled, knowing that with her and Nangong Ziyu standing beside Long Chen, Dongfang Yuyang would be forced to concede. Thank you, transmitted Long Chen to Beitang Rushuang and Nangong Ziyu. He was very grateful for their help. He also cupped his fists in thanks toward Hu Feng. Hu Feng had also stood by his side, meaning that he viewed Long Chen as a friend. Hu Feng was the gambling heavenly Dao's heir. He was mysterious and powerful. Even here, he had a powerful position. Not having to leave made Yi Lingshan sigh with relief. When she had left for this place, Chu Jianying had repeatedly warned her to look after Long Chen and make sure that he didn't cause any trouble. However, there was no way for her to look after Long Chen. If they had returned like this, Chu Jianying would give them a blistering lecture. Rather than forming good relationships with the powerful existences that had appeared, they had instead solidified their enmities. She really didn't know how she would be able to explain herself if they left like this. The new auction room was already ready. It went without saying that the Dongfang family's efficiency was amazing. In the second room, Long Chen still chose to sit at the back. Yi Lingshan, Yi Zhiqiu, Nangong Zuyu, and Beitang Rushuang followed him. But what he didn't expect was for Ziyen to come as well. May I ask if there is a spot for me? Asked Ziyen. Of course. Please sit. Long Chen naturally wouldn't refuse. Ziyan's display just now had been an expression of goodwill. Although he still didn't know her exact standing point, her action just now was enough. Ziyen greeted the others. Her special Dao charm that contained the essence of the heavenly Daos made even Nangong Zuyu and Beitang Rushuang view her with respect. Nangong Zuyu in particular was getting along with Ziyen very well. After just a few words, it was like the two of them were close friends. Ziyan's experiences and comprehension resonated with Nangong Zuyu's in many areas. The two of them began a long conversation about all things within heaven and earth. After just a few exchanges, they were holding hands, quietly discussing something. Long Chen held Yi Zhiqiu's hand while talking to Beitang Rushuang and Yi Lingshan. At the same time, he was paying attention to what was happening at the front of the room. Suddenly, Ziyen sent him a spiritual message. Long Chen, you don't need to guard against me any longer. I think that we won't be enemies in the future. Really? Long Chen was pleasantly surprised. Yes. My ancestral master said so herself. The Great Era's arrival means that the Dark Era will quickly follow. Right now, everyone must be united to defend the martial heaven continent. Whether you're a hero or a devil, as long as you choose the right opponents to face, your name will be immortalized throughout history, said Ziyen. It was like a weight had been lifted from her shoulder. Are you referring to your fated devil star? Probed Long Chen. Ziyen had once told him that he was her life's fated devil star. Even now, Long Chen didn't know just which rat bastard had come up with such a pain-in-the-ass nonsense. In any case, Xiezi seemed to believe it without question. The two of them were fated to be mortal enemies, and she had constantly wanted to purify him. As for Long Chen, he had been unable to bring himself to kill Xiezi either, so she had always been a sore point in his heart. Xiezi smiled. The devil is born from the heart. The heart devil is also a kind of trial. I promised my master I would overcome my heart devil. I will never. In any case, we won't be enemies in the future. Long Chen didn't notice the pain that appeared deep within her eyes when she said that. In order to no longer be enemies with Long Chen, she had promised the elusive Music Immortal Palace that she would not have any feelings toward Long Chen. She had even sworn this oath in front of the ancestral master who had presided over successive generations. Although she would no longer have to be enemies with Long Chen because of her master or her sex orders, when it came to her relationship with him, it could no longer progress a single step forward. As long as we're not enemies, it's good. To tell the truth, it was really hard on me every time you appeared to block my path. Long Chen smiled. As he was looking into the crowd, he was only happy, not seeing Xiao's sadness. Brother Peng, you finally arrived. Just at this moment, Dongfang Yuyang, who had been personally greeting everyone coming in, stood and welcomed someone. When that person appeared, all the experts in the room focused on him. They knew who he was. Kun Pengzi. He's actually also awakened, said Beitang Rushuang. Who is Kun Pengzi? Asked Long Chen. Could it be that he's? Yi Lingshan turned pale. Yes. The son of the Pring Emperor whose wings shattered all Daoists and whose claws slaughtered heavenly geniuses. The Pring Emperor's blood flows through his veins. He is said to be the Xian Beast's strongest expert. Nangong Zuyu nodded, also staring at him. He is a true emperor's son. It is said that he obtained the Pring Emperor's complete inheritance. For him to awaken now, he's probably also aiming to corroborate his Dao, said Xiezi. The Pring Emperor was one of the true three emperors, the experts recognized throughout history to be second only to the sovereigns. Kun Pengzi was the son of an emperor who had directly inherited his father's bloodline. Long Chen looked closely at Kun Pengzi. He was 9 feet tall, taller than humans but not particularly tall for a Xian beast. However, his blood qi was incredibly strong. His face looked like it had been carved by a knife. His nose was extremely high and had a slight hook at the end. There were runes flickering within his eyes. He's a lightning cultivator? Long Chen was startled. Yes. The Pring Emperor was born being able to control lightning. His killing power was exceptionally terrifying. As his son, Kun Pengzi is naturally able to use all his abilities, said Beitang Rushuang. Kun Pengzi nodded at Dongfang Yang without saying anything. Turning to Long Chen, he began to walk over. Kun Pengzi began walking over to Long Chen, but halfway there, he turned and walked to Huang Fian, sitting beside her. Huang Fian's mouth moved. Their seat was covered by a sound formation, so it was impossible to tell what they were talking about. Kun Pengzi turned slightly to glance at Long Chen after hearing what she said. His sharp face was expressionless. Long Chen, you've gained another terrifying enemy. It was said that the Pring Emperor has passed on his life's mission to Kun Pengzi, having entrusted everything to him. He is his true successor. As for you, considering your enmity with the Xian beasts, there will definitely be a fierce battle between the two of you, warned Beitang Rushuang. Even Beitang Rushuang was worrying for Long Chen. He really was surrounded by enemies, each stronger than the last. A fight's a fight. I'm used to it, said Long Chen indifferently. This was also a reason he hadn't wanted to come to this gathering. This scene was essentially what he had predicted. Of course, hiding was not a solution. In the cultivation world, yielding and accommodating others would not get you peace. It would just make the storm grow stronger before it crashed down upon you. If you took a step back, your enemies would take a step forward. You couldn't compromise your way out of that. In the end, you would be forced back to a land of death without a chance to turn things around. Kun Pengzi's arrival caused quite a few waves. After all, he was the son of one of the 3 emperors. His status and position was extremely high. Kun Pengzi as an emperor's son and the pill fairy as a divine daughter were like two huge mountains amongst their midst, suffocating them. Only Lingfeng was glaring at Kun Pengzi. Kun Pengzi was a true emperor's son. Hence, Lingfeng's own status as the descendant of one of the three emperors was now no longer high. First, the Peng Emperor had been acknowledged by everyone as one of the three emperors. As for the Stone Emperor, he had barely managed to get that title because the corrupt emperor had refused to call himself emperor. Even if he called himself emperor, the Stone Emperor was just gilding his own face. Second, Kun Pengzi was the Peng Emperor's direct son with a bloodline inheritance. As for Lingfeng, he was just one of the Stone Emperor's descendants. The Stone race were not humans nor beasts, so there was no such thing as a bloodline for them. Kun Pengzi, once this gathering is over, I want to ask for some pointers from you. Please show me the supreme techniques of the Peng Emperor. In the end, Lingfeng wasn't able to stop himself from challenging Kun Pengzi. However, in front of Kun Pengzi, Lingfeng didn't dare to be arrogant. Even though it was a challenge, it wasn't overbearing. "Anytime you want," responded Kun Pengzi in a cold tone. As time passed, more and more experts filled the room. Long Chun counted over 80 people. That person is... Suddenly, Yi Lingshan's pupils shrank as she spotted someone at the entrance. At some point, a small, delicate figure had appeared. She appeared silently without anyone noticing. It was like she didn't even exist. If they didn't personally see her, there would have been no way to sense her existence. She wore a black cloak that covered most of her face. It only revealed a straight nose and a small mouth. From her figure and what was revealed of her face, she looked to be around 14 to 15 years old. She hadn't even fully grown up, but her appearance shook everyone present. Every person here, as a supreme genius, possessed amazing spiritual perception. But not one of them had sensed this girl's arrival. Most shocking of all, this girl was the same as the pill fairy. She had a divine ring behind her head casting her in holy divine light. Long Chen's heart shook. He almost instantly thought of a certain name, Dong Mingyu. Back in the day, she had gotten 3rd place on the Devil's Slaughter rankings. Now she was appearing before everyone with another status. The ring behind her showed that she was also a divine daughter. "Junior sister Dong Mingyu, you're finally here." Dong Feng Yuyang immediately went to greet her. With another divine daughter present, the atmosphere grew heavier once more. Even these supreme geniuses, who had swept through their generations, felt a mountain-like pressure in the face of those who had the inheritances of gods. Dong Mingyu nodded without saying anything and walked over to her own seat. Her hood was up, not allowing anyone to see her expression. For her large cloak to cover her small body was a bit odd-looking, but the sight of her made every expert feel a profound sense of fear. The Bloodkill Hall was legendary for its assassinations. They were skilled in killing targets far stronger than them. As their ordinary disciples could assassinate targets across realms, their divine daughter must be even more terrifying than them. After Dong Mingyu's arrival, there were a total of 87 people. Long Chun didn't see Emon Yen's figure anywhere. "Respected heavenly geniuses, thank you for attending our 3rd auction. This auction is the most important one, and I trust that it won't disappoint you." The original pill appraiser who had hosted the last auction came up once more, his voice resounding throughout the room. Perhaps he simply understood the characters of heavenly geniuses, and he didn't waste words. He got straight to the first treasure. This is an infinite 8 bitters root, an immortal remnant. It has long since gone extinct, and this root here might be one of a kind. It contains 8 kinds of bitterness: birth, age, sickness, death, parting with love, meeting with hate, failure, and the 5 sufferings of the skandhas. It penetrates deep into the heart and can temper the will as well as bestow comprehension of life. It is one of the best medicines for peering into the heavenly Daoist. It can be said that this infinite 8 bitters root is a priceless treasure, but the regretful thing is, due to how old it is, it has used up almost all its spirituality. It only has the slightest trace of life left. As a result, its medicinal effect has sharply dropped, and as for the 8 realms of bitterness it embodies, their essence is sharply discounted. The middle-aged man couldn't help having a regretful expression. Such a priceless treasure had been wasted like this. The other experts' eyes had been shining at the start, as they had heard of the great name of the infinite 8 bitters root before. However, if such a priceless treasure had lost all its energy, then it wasn't really valuable. They even guessed that this infinite 8 bitters root was something someone had just tossed in because it was useless. Its actual value was very low. The middle-aged man continued, although its actual value is now low, it can be considered a one-of-a-kind object, so we decided to use it to open this auction. Whether or not it's useful depends on the person. I'm sure many of the heavenly geniuses here have some interest in it. The infinite 8 bitters root, starting price of 30 underworld spirit beads. Each bid must be 5 beads greater than the last. Let the bidding start now. Long Chen's heart pounded wildly as he looked at that infinite 8 bitters root. It was definitely an extremely precious medicinal plant. It had no tear, but if refined into medicinal powder, it could be merged into many kinds of medicinal pills to increase their quality. Any pill its powder was added to would no longer be as explosive. That middle-aged man clearly knew that, which was why he had such a regretful expression. It had too little life energy to refine into medicinal powder. The amount of energy it possessed was probably only enough for one expert to experience the 8 bitters realm, and that realm wouldn't be as perfect as before. The starting auction item was extremely important. It couldn't be too precious, or it would overshadow the following items. It also couldn't be ordinary, or people wouldn't be interested in the rest of the auction. So the first item had to be attractive while not being very expensive. Thus, this deteriorated infinite 8 bitters root had been tossed out. 35 underworld spirit beads. Someone immediately shouted a bid. 40 underworld spirit beads. 50 underworld spirit beads. The price grew higher and higher. It quickly reached 75 underworld spirit beads. This bid was from Huang Fian. After this bid, many of the other bidders shook their heads. This price was too high, and they also didn't want to fight against Huang Fian, who was famous for being a petty woman. 80 underworld spirit beads. Just as Huang Fian thought that the infinite 8 bitters root was about to enter her pocket, Long Chen opened his mouth. This time, Long Chen didn't have Beitang Rushuang act for him. Last time, she had done it for Long Chen to get some advantage. However, this time, it was different. As an alchemist, Long Chen knew why Huang Fian wanted this infinite 8 bitters root. Her spiritual strength was her weak point as a Xian beast. She had always wanted to make up for it. Furthermore, as a Xian beast, her comprehension of the 8 bitters like birth, age, and death was below average. So even though this infinite 8 bitters root had almost lost all its power, someone as rich as her could afford it for the chance that it might allow her soul to advance. She had clearly shown her hand. This 8 infinite bitters root was a must-have for her. If Long Chen made Beitang Rushuang bid for him, she would draw the ire of Huang Fian. Pulling someone he trusted down wasn't something that Long Chen would do, so he bid himself. As expected, Huang Fian instantly became frosty. She turned around to glare at Long Chen. 100 underworld spirit beads. Huang Fian was enraged. She thought that Long Chen was intentionally finding trouble for her. 105, bid Long Chen. He also viewed this infinite 8 bitters root as a must-have because he had the primal chaos space. He could restore it and grow more. That would be of great help in his alchemy. Long Chen, you are courting death, roared Huang Fian. An invisible pressure burst out of her, startling the other experts. Huang Fian's furious shout made the others in the room frown. Just how petty was she? Everyone wanted treasures, and this was an auction. Why couldn't others bid on something just because she wanted it? Bidding was courting death? The Xian beasts were definitely too big for their britches. With shit like you here, why would I need to look for more shit? Long Chen was also enraged. This girl was too arrogant. Why couldn't he bid for this? He rarely stooped to the level of women who irritated him, but this Huang Fian was too infuriating for him to hold back. Beitang Rushuang almost spat out her tea after hearing this. Quite a few people were looking at Huang Fian oddly, some of them having a faint smile on their faces. Huang Fian took a few seconds to react as she didn't understand the human language as well as them. However, when she realized what Long Chen had said, she turned ashen with rage. She pointed at Long Chen, about to burst into curses. "Sit down." Kun Pengzi suddenly shouted at her. Huang Fian unwillingly glared at Long Chen, but she swallowed what she was about to say. Clearly, even someone as willful as her had to listen to Kun Pengzi. It could be seen just how grand Kun Pengzi's status was amongst the Xian beasts. Dongfang Yang couldn't help frowning. He had previously said that he would accompany everyone now and that they were to give him face by not causing any more trouble. Zhao Wuji and Lingfeng hadn't provoked Long Chen, but Huang Fian seemed to have not heard Dong Yuyang's statement, irritating him. However, Dongfang Yang also did not want to expel her unless he was forced to. If he casually kicked people out, that wouldn't be in accordance with the goal of this gathering. Fortunately, Kun Pengzi was present, suppressing her. Seeing this, everyone realized that Huang Fian was even more unreasonable than the story said. Perhaps only Kun Pengzi could keep her under control. Mr. Long Chen bids 105 underworld spirit beads. Are there any higher bids? If not, I'll have to announce dash, said the middle-aged man. 200. Huang Fian spat out her bid. 200 underworld spirit beads was an astoundingly high bid. Even though these heavenly geniuses didn't lack money, this was no small amount. Even 100 would not have been worth it for this measly withered root. For her to bid 200, perhaps she had gone insane and simply wanted to go against Long Chen. 205. Long Chen's bid calmly came out once more. Flames almost exploded out of Huang Fian. She had already come to the conclusion that Long Chen was going against her. Each time, he was bidding 5 beads more than her. He was clearly toying with her. This was no longer a matter of price but a competition of wealth. She refused to believe that someone with no backer could compare to someone like her in terms of wealth. She was about to bid 300. "Give it to him," said Kun Pengzi indifferently. "What?" Huang Fian was enraged. Even Kun Pengzi wasn't letting her continue. If you can't learn to control your emotions, then even a pile of infinite 8-bitters roots wouldn't help you. External power can only assist you, but cultivation relies on yourself. Do you think a little infinite 8-bitters root can change your fate? That's a joke. If you could learn to see yourself clearly, that would be even more helpful than 10 infinite 8-bitters roots. Refusing to accept a simple setback like this means that you will never be able to step to a higher level. Every person requires setbacks before advancing while constantly strengthening themselves. Of course, some people manage to advance with no setbacks at all. But I'll tell you this, those people all died without understanding how to stop and take a look at where they were. They just blindly charged forward. What kind of accomplishments could they have? Said Kun Pengzi coldly. His words were heard clearly by all the experts because Huang Fian had shut down the sound formation in order to shout at Long Chen. Everyone quietly nodded. Kun Pengzi was a true expert. Even as a Xian beast, he was cool-headed and able to control his own emotions. No wonder the Peng Emperor had chosen him as his heir. After all, Xian beasts were still beasts. They were easy to anger, and their comprehension of the heavenly Daoist was a far cry from humans. The heavens had given them powerful physical bodies and long longevity, and in exchange, stripped them of their comprehension toward the heavenly Daoist. People said that the heavens were fair. If they gave you something, they would also take something else away. In the same vein, if they took something from you, they would also quietly give you something. Perhaps that was the true essence of the heavenly Daoist. Kun Pengzi was calm and steady, truly possessing the mannerisms of an emperor. Huang Fian appeared particularly immature in front of him. 205 underworld spirit beads going once. 205 underworld spirit beads going twice. 205 underworld spirit beads going thrice. Congratulations, Mr. Long Chen, on obtaining the infinite 8-bitters root, announced the middle-aged man in charge of the auction. Long Chen's lips curled. What congratulations? This thing was trash in other people's hands. It was only useful to him. If it weren't for that idiot Huang Fian, this thing's price would not have surpassed 50 underworld spirit beads. However, an auction wasn't the place to get an advantage. The second item quickly went up. It was a set of bone armor and was also an ancient relic. There were divine runes on it, but just like the infinite 8 bitters root, it was damaged. There was no way around that. These things were too old. Many parts were incomplete, and that was the only reason why their owners had been willing to auction them off. Despite the damage, the bone armor had many rare runes on it, and so there was value in researching it. There was definitely some potential there. The bone armor drew quite a bit of attention, going from a starting price of 30 underworld spirit beads all the way to 150 in no time at all. In the end, the winning bid was made by Nangong Zuyu for 180 underworld spirit beads. She was particularly fond of these things that had historical value. Last time it was a tortoise shell, and this time it's bone armor. Hee, if you add some tofu, you can make a delicious stew. Then if I added the infinite 8 bitters root, it would definitely be nourishing, joked Long Chen. Nangong Zuyu smiled. Both times she had bought bones. For a girl to keep buying such things was truly a bit strange. Just as the third treasure was put up for auction, the items that Long Chen and Nangong Zuyu had bought were brought over. After obtaining the infinite 8 bitters root, Long Chen couldn't stop his heart from wildly pounding. If it worked, he would profit endlessly. If it didn't work, those 200 underworld spirit beads of his would have been for nothing. Long Chen directly tossed the infinite 8 bitters root into the primal chaos space. He covered it with the life dirt. However, he was disappointed not to see any reaction at all. Normally, whatever plant he threw in, even if it was just a branch, it would quickly start to revive and grow. However, there was no sign of that from the endless 8 bitters root. Long Chen sighed inside. It seemed that this endless 8 bitters root had run out of all its vitality. Even the primal chaos space was unable to revive it. The auction continued. It went without saying that everything being auctioned off was an amazing treasure. Every item was enticing. Long Chen wished he could buy them all, but he didn't have that much money. At this time, Long Chen saw what powerful foundations these ancient existences possessed. He had thought that the 500 underworld spirit beads he had obtained with the 100-flower Dao Resonation pill would make him rich, but now he found that these 500 underworld spirit beads weren't that much at all. Many people were bidding over 500 underworld spirit beads. For example, Nangong Zuyu had spent over 600 underworld spirit beads. Long Chen looked at her directly and asked if the people in her home were all this rich, eliciting a laugh. Xiezi, do you see anything you want? If you do, just tell me. Although I'm out of money now, I can always borrow some and buy things for you. My 2 big rich creditors are right here. Long Chen smiled at Xiezi. Xiezi had always been icy, and Long Chen wanted to improve the slightly cold atmosphere of their seat. Let me tell you, I'm not lending you any more. I also don't have that many underworld spirit beads, warned Beitang Rushuang. This fellow had no money and still offered to buy things for others. He was truly shameless. I don't see anything interesting, but my master gave me 300 underworld spirit beads this time. Long Chen, you can use them. Xiezi took out a cosmos bag and gave it to Long Chen. Long Chen was immediately embarrassed. It was just a joke, but Xiezi had taken it seriously. Just how could Long Chen take Yizhichio's money in front of everyone? I never thought that the great Long Chen would have the potential to be a gigolo. Beitang Rushuang laughed. After being teased by this slippery fellow for days, she finally found a chance to counterattack. With Beitang Rushuang saying this, Long Chen really couldn't accept this cosmos bag. Seeing his embarrassed state, Beitang Rushuang laughed delightedly. Long Chen simply told Yizhichio to keep it for now, and if there was anything good that appeared, they could combine their underworld spirit beads to buy it. By this point, the prices of the treasures appearing were growing increasingly high. A Qilin horn! They even have such a thing! Exclaimed Yi Lingshan suddenly. A giant horn had been brought onto the stage. Divine runes still flashed on top of it, and an incredibly ancient aura was emitted. This was definitely not a damaged item. The appearance of the Qilin horn brought intense competition. In the end, it was Huang Fian who managed to purchase it for 1,080 underworld spirit beads. That was the highest bid since the auction had started. Huang Fian happily took away the Qilin horn. Clearly, it was very useful to her. Everyone, the Qilin horn was one of the 3 top treasures of this auction. In other words, there are still 2 more priceless treasures coming up. Those who haven't managed to win anything, don't miss this chance. Here is the next treasure. It is definitely exciting and desirable. The middle-aged man pushed open a red curtain on the stage, causing countless startled cries to ring out amongst the crowd. Hand seals began to appear on top of the stone stage, blossoming like flowers and revolving around a medicinal pill. That pill was like the bright moon surrounded by stars. It appeared especially mysterious and dazzling. A top-grade 11th tier medicinal pill, and furthermore, it has the mark of heavenly lightning. It's a tribulation pill. The experts here all had immense experience and instantly recognized this medicinal pill's quality. Huang Fian in particular began to tremble. Although she didn't recognize what this pill was, she could sense its power. As those hand seals blossomed, soul energy crazily rushed toward it, surging through the walls. This pill was condensing the soul energy of all things within heaven and earth. It was a truly shocking scene. After 3 breaths' time, the middle-aged man said, "This pill's name is the 1,000-hand soul-condensing pill. It is an extremely rare tribulation pill. Let alone in the current age, even in the ancient era, such a pill was rarely seen." I'm sure everyone here is aware that any 11th tier medicinal pills that still exist were nourished through special formations and never went through tribulation. That's because the odds of a pill surviving tribulation are too low. It is said that the odds are 1 in 10, but in reality, as an alchemist, I can tell everyone that the actual chances definitely do not surpass 1 in 100. Just refining a top-grade 11th tier medicinal pill is as difficult as ascending the heavens. Sometimes, it doesn't just rely on power but also luck. Even a grandmaster of the pill Dao may not manage to refine a top-grade 11th tier pill in their lifetime. Some grandmasters strive their entire lives to do so only to fail, and countless geniuses of the pill Dao have lost their lives in pursuit of refining a top-grade 11th tier pill. That's why this 1,000-hand soul-condensing pill is so precious. Please don't misunderstand, I'm not saying this to embellish this medicinal pill. This pill was offered by a certain heavenly genius, and it doesn't matter to my Dongfang family how much it sells for. It wasn't the Dongfang family's? People were stunned. Who would actually auction off a tribulation pill? Instantly, quite a few people glanced at Long Chen. Long Chen narrowed his eyes. This appraiser really said a lot of extra words. Was he trying to make a target of him? Long Chen, is this 1,000-hand soul-condensing pill yours? Asked Beitang Rushuang. Yes. Long Chen nodded. There was no need for him to lie to them. You really are an idiot. How could you sell off such a precious tribulation pill? Beitang Rushuang was shocked. I need money. Long Chen shrugged. He wasn't born rich like her. Beitang Rushuang looked at him like he was a wastrel. That made Long Chen laugh. This pill was something he could refine as many of as he wanted. This treasure in other people's eyes was nothing to him. Although the middle-aged man hadn't directly said that the owner of this 1,000-hand soul-condensing pill was Long Chen, most people had already guessed it. The news of Long Chen obtaining the moon and star refining furnace and the 9 Lotus soul-condensing pill had already spread. As for this 1,000-hand soul-condensing pill, it had a similar effect as the 9 Lotus soul-condensing pill. If someone had both, it truly was possible to sell one. Although I'm sure you've guessed the effect of this 1,000-hand soul-condensing pill, let me give a brief explanation. It nourishes the soul, but that's not all. It will leave a seed within the Yuan spirit. Like this, the consumer and the pill will become one, and for 1 year, the pill will continue nourishing the soul. The 1,000-hand soul-condensing pill's essence is to nourish the soul with all das. Furthermore, this pill is most likely 10 times greater than an ordinary top-grade 11th tier pill. That's all I have to say. The starting bid is 500 underworld spirit beads, and each bid must be 50 beads greater than the last. Let the bidding commence. Even the middle-aged man was getting excited. As an alchemist, auctioning off a tribulation pill was also a kind of honor. 1,000 underworld spirit beads. Huang Fian immediately doubled the price, indicating that she had to obtain it. 1,100. However, her high bid didn't scare off others. Beitang Rushuang also took action, immediately adding another 100. Do you want this 1,000-hands soul condensing pill? Asked Long Qin. Fool, who wouldn't want such a treasure? Beitang Rushuang rolled her eyes. Long Qin stared blankly at her before realizing the issue. These ancient monsters had definitely consumed medicinal pills to increase their spiritual strength. With their status, even top-grade 11th-tier medicinal pills weren't out of their reach. However, every pill could only be eaten so many times before it lost its effect. Normally, a pill would only have half the effect if someone had already consumed an identical pill. By the third pill, the effect would have dropped by half once again. Moreover, the fourth pill would have almost no effect. Their bodies already had a resistance toward ordinary top-grade 11th-tier pills. If they wanted to power up again, they would need something much stronger, and so a tribulation pill was their best option. Only a tribulation pill could stimulate their potential with 100 perfect effect. Other than Long Chen, practically everyone wanted to increase their spiritual strength immensely. So these spiritual medicinal pills always went for high prices. 1,300. 1,500. The price crazily rose. It quickly broke past 2,000. At that point, Beitang Rushuang shook her head and gave up. Although this 1,000-hand soul condensing pill was valuable, there was no way to buy it at a reasonable price. Everyone was fighting for it. The final price would definitely be beyond its actual value. People were still fighting over it when the bid broke past 2,000. 2,800. 2,900. At 2,900, the bidding was done by just two people. One was Huang Fian, while the other was the pill fairy Yu Qingxian. That was a bit surprising. They didn't know why the pill fairy wanted the 1,000-hand soul condensing pill. Pill fairy, this 1,000-hand soul condensing pill is very useful to me. If you are generous today, I will definitely repay you in the future. Huang Fian actually spoke softly to the pill fairy. The pill fairy hesitated before saying, "This 1,000-hand soul condensing pill is different from ordinary tribulation pills. It was refined with some special techniques. I'm very interested in it, so forgive me for not being able to concede." Huang Fian was enraged once again. She had already taken on a humble attitude, almost begging her, but the pill fairy refused. Getting angry is an instinct, but controlling your anger is a skill. Anger cannot resolve problems. Only by calming down can you find the key to resolve your problem, said Kun Pengzi calmly. He was sitting to the side, his eyes closed in meditation. Huang Fian took a deep breath, calming herself down. She said, "Pill fairy, if you are interested in this pill, then how about you let me have it, and I will lend it to you to study for 10 days? How is that?" Huang Fian now realized that the pill fairy wasn't interested in the medicinal effect but the techniques used to refine it. As for Huang Fian, she wasn't interested in those alchemy techniques, so she had finally figured out a way for the two of them to compromise. In truth, she was a bit afraid of the pill fairy. After all, Pill Valley almost controlled the lifeblood of all the pills on the Martial Heaven continent. No one knew just how much wealth they had gathered over the years. In any case, it was definitely an unimaginable amount. That was why Huang Fian didn't dare to challenge the pill fairy in wealth. Furthermore, Pill Valley and the Xian beasts were not enemies. They could even be considered allies. There was no need for them to fight. The pill fairy considered Huang Fian's request and then nodded. "That's acceptable. Many thanks." Huang Fian was delighted, thanking her graciously. In the end, for the price of 2,950 underworld spirit beads, the 1,000-hand soul condensing pill entered her pocket. The bid of 2,900 underworld spirit beads had been made by the pill fairy, so Huang Fian had no choice but to increase the bid by 50. Despite that, she was crazy with joy. "That's clearly cheating," said Long Chen hatefully. If the two of them had continued competing, he would have been the one to benefit most. As it was possible to consult with other potential bidders, what was the point of an auction? That's about enough. A normal top-grade 11th tier pill would go for around 30 underworld spirit beads. 10 times that price is 300, while this price is almost 100 times that. It's a huge amount of money, so you should be happy, consoled Nangongzu. This price really is high. Long Chen, did you know in advance that Huang Fian and the pill fairy would fight over it, so you put it up for auction? Asked Beitang Rushuang suspiciously. What are you nonsensically spouting? Long Chen glared at her. Other than Yi Zhiqiu, the others laughed. In truth, Long Chen had only calculated in Huang Fian. He hadn't thought that the pill fairy would join in. He knew that Huang Fian would go all out to obtain this 1,000-hand soul-condensing pill. Originally, Long Chen had been planning on bidding against her just to drive the price up, but then the middle-aged man, that idiot, had said too many words, exposing him as the owner. Fortunately, the pill fairy had competed against Huang Fian, driving the price up a bit. 2,950 underworld spirit beads was an unimaginable amount to Long Chen. With the 1,000-hand soul-condensing pill auctioned off, everyone's attention once more focused on the middle-aged man. He took a deep breath, announcing, "This next item is special. Look at it closely because it is related to the sovereigns." When his final words rang out, it shook the hearts of every expert present. Related to the sovereigns? Even Long Chen was shocked. The Dongfang family truly had a terrifying foundation to even take out such a treasure. The curtains were pulled open, revealing 8 elders holding a giant sphere. The sphere was 3 meters wide and transparent, allowing them to see the strange energy fluctuating within it. These 8 elders were nether passage experts, but they were barely able to hold up this sphere. They were already sweating. After placing the sphere onto the stage, the 8 of them sighed with relief, seeming relieved of a great burden. They bowed to Dongfang Yuyang before leaving. Everyone looked closely at this sphere. They could sense holy energy flowing within it. It was like a mountain or a sea, giving off endless pressure. The energy inside the sphere was turbid, and it was impossible to see anything inside clearly. Long Chen's pupils suddenly shrank. This aura was familiar. It was the aura of a sovereign. However, it wasn't Sovereign Yun Shang's aura. A memory suddenly appeared within Long Chen's mind. It's him. In his memory, he saw a white-robed man standing in the sky. His eyes blazed like the sun, and his hair was shoulder-length. He was like a god as he floated in the sky, so bright that others couldn't even look at him, so sacred that looking at him was a blasphemy. The white-robed man formed hand seals that caused heaven and earth to shake. The ground rose, forming a giant mountain, and divine pillars appeared, crashing down. It was the sovereign seal on Devil Spirit Mountain. Long Chen had once looked at him through space-time, and this person had even sent him a message. The game breaker has finally arrived. Even now, Long Chen didn't understand what that meant, but he remembered his aura. Long Chen, Nangongzu and Beitang Rushuang looked at Long Chen with disbelief. Yes, this is definitely his aura. But it's very vague. How curious, Long Chen's gaze was still locked onto the sphere. It was like he was responding to the two of them, but also like he was talking to himself. Nangongzu and Beitang Rushuang exchanged a glance, both seeing each other's shock. Long Chen actually recognized the aura inside the sphere. Is it Sovereign Yun Shang's aura? Asked Beitang Rushuang to confirm. No, it's another sovereign's aura, said Long Chen. He seemed to be lost in his memories. On Devil Spirit Mountain, Long Chen had seen how the sovereign had created the sovereign seal. That sovereign's power was unimaginable. Even now, he still felt himself to be an ant in front of that power. This aura isn't just indistinct. It feels like it's not authentic somehow. It's very strange. Long Chen frowned. Nangongzu and Beitang Rushuang couldn't believe this. Legend had it that the aura of the sovereigns could not be remembered by any living being unless that person was related to the sovereigns in some way. That was why the sovereigns continued to remain mysterious. Even if a person was personally in front of a sovereign seal, once they left, they would gradually forget that aura. No one had been able to change that reality. That was why the two of them were particularly shocked to find that Long Chen recognized this aura, and that he had even seen two sovereigns. the middle-aged man continued. Everyone, prepare yourself to bear witness to the power of a sovereign. The middle-aged man suddenly patted the sphere, and it burst apart. A holy pressure filled the entire room. The middle-aged man was instantly sent flying by that pressure. He smashed into the wall, coughing up a mouthful of blood. All the experts felt that pressure crashing down upon them. It was like a star was crushing them. Many of their seats simply exploded. The formations around them were obliterated. Even the room was unable to endure it. It exploded and the roof became the blue sky. People were completely shocked. Just this little bit of aura was already so terrifying. After the initial burst, the aura faded. It was no longer so terrifying. They saw a ball of primal chaos flowing and then just barely managed to make out an ancient beast hide. There was a single word inscribed onto the beast hide: seal. Although it was just one word, it contained the power to seal the heavens and lock the earth, a power that transcended time and space. Each stroke contained a supreme Tao intent. Every stroke was like its own world. This word seemed to encompass the secrets of the cosmos and was in existence outside the laws of the world. A sovereign seal. People stared in amazement at that beast hide. A fierce light shone in their eyes. A seal left behind by a sovereign was priceless. The stone stage was still present, but everything else was a mess. The middle-aged man in charge of the auction was helped up, and after eating a pill, he walked back onto the stage. My apologies. The auction was supposed to be held in the other room, which had specialized divine runes to block a portion of the impact of the sovereign seal. However, due to something unexpected, those divine runes were destroyed. We weren't able to install them here in time, so please forgive me, said the middle-aged man. Let me introduce you to this treasure. It is a sovereign seal, but it is a replica. A replica? How is that possible? Startled cries rang out. How could a replica possess that terrifying aura? It truly is just a replica. This sovereign seal was not created by a sovereign. Instead, a supreme existence managed to create this replica from Devil Spirit Mountain seal. That's why it possesses the sovereign's aura, but none of the sovereigns will, said the middle-aged man. Now everyone understood. So this terrifying aura didn't have the true will to transmit it. Otherwise, none of them would still be standing. A simple replica was actually so terrifying. The true sovereign seal and the actual sovereigns were unimaginably powerful. Beitang Rushuang and Nangong Zuyu looked at Long Chen. Now they understood why Long Chen had said that the sovereign aura was indistinct and seemed off. Now they believed him. I'm sure everyone knows that Devil Spirit Mountain's sovereign blood seal was set in place by the second-generation sovereign, Sovereign Qing Su. The sovereigns have always been mysterious. They saved the world, suppressing the disasters that struck the continent. However, afterward, they all silently vanished. All they left behind was their names. This sovereign seal does not have the sovereign's blood and only has the shape. It can only be called a replica. Calling it a true sovereign seal would be a blasphemy toward the sovereigns, said the middle-aged man reverently. Although it's a replica, to be able to replicate the sovereign blood seal shows that the expert who created this had to have reached an unimaginable height. So even this replica is a priceless treasure. To tell the truth, it is the priceless treasure of my Dongfang family. But in order to express our sincerity, we have taken it out as the final, most precious auction item. All right, that's enough talking. A replica of the sovereign seal, starting price of 1,000 underworld spirit beads. Every bid must be 100 underworld spirit beads greater than the last. The bidding starts now. 1,500. 2,000. 2,500. Even though it was a replica, it still drove people mad. Anything related to the sovereigns was a priceless treasure. If these supreme geniuses could obtain it and comprehend some of the sovereign's will from it, they would benefit for a lifetime. Beitang Rushuang and Nangong Zuyu were also moved by this treasure, but before they could bid, Long Chen stopped them, sending them a message. Don't be fooled. That sovereign seal isn't a replica. Not a replica? Then what is it? Asked Nangong Zuyu. It's a replica of a replica. Something like that isn't worth any money. Seeing their lost expressions, Long Chen continued, This thing was made by replicating the original replica. The sovereign aura inside is a mess and has clearly been modified by someone. If you bought this, rather than attaining any enlightenment, you might be led astray. And furthermore, what would you want it for? Who cares about a replicated sovereign seal? Every person has their own unique path to walk. Just because someone else was able to walk one path to its peak doesn't mean that we would be able to. Of the myriad Daoists, what matters is what suits us best. What's the point of blindly following someone else's footsteps? What's the point of wasting that money? I'm telling you that thing is useless, so it'd be better to invest your money in me. Truly, it's a small investment, but you'll get a quick profit, said Long Chen sincerely. Originally, the two of them were listening raptly to Long Chen. He was correct. The sovereigns had walked their own paths, and if others tried to follow, there was no way they could reach the same height as the sovereigns. It was better to follow their own paths. But toward the end, Nangong Zuyu smiled. After a bit of serious talk, Long Chen once more returned to his normal state. Beitang Rushuang rolled her eyes at him. While the two of them didn't join in on the bidding, that didn't mean that others weren't. The sovereigns had walked their own paths, corroborating their own Daoists. This was a rare chance for others to gain a greater understanding of how they had done that. The price rose rapidly. Even though it was a replica, people were going crazy for it. Even Kun Pengzi had joined in. Everyone was going all out, but when Kun Pengzi bid 8,000, the replica ended up in his pocket. Kun Pengzi didn't reveal any joy after obtaining it. It was because of his steady and calm expression that so many of the people ended up giving up. They all felt him to be a very terrifying existence. They couldn't read him, so they couldn't tell what his price limit was. The current world had declined. Hence, resources were growing tighter. The underworld spirit beads were extremely precious, and each one that was used was one that they could never get back. 8,000 underworld spirit beads wasn't a price that these geniuses could afford. Congratulations, Brother Kun, on obtaining this priceless treasure. The auction is now concluded. Tomorrow will be the true gathering of past and present heroes. I'd like to ask everyone to gather in front of the Heavenly Music Stone tomorrow at noon. Let us gather all the heroes of the continent for a discussion. Following Dongfang Yuyang's words, the curtain was drawn on the auction. Everyone left. Long Chen and Yi Zhiqiu left, all the time holding hands. They said goodbye to Nangong Zuyu, Beitang Rushuang, and Yi Lingshan. Long Chen wanted to go back into seclusion, but when he said his goodbyes, Nangong Zuyu and Beitang Rushuang blushed slightly. He immediately realized that they had misunderstood, thinking that he had gone into seclusion for the sake of continuing the human race. After realizing that, he felt that talking about it would only make it worse, so he didn't explain. Don't work so hard that you miss the gathering tomorrow, said Beitang Rushuang, winking at him. Seeing that smile that also didn't look like a smile, Long Chen felt a fiery sensation. She was definitely a killer seductress. Beitang Rushuang, Nangong Zuyu, and Yi Lingshan left together. Yi Zhiqiu had a rare rosiness on her cheeks. Looking at Long Chen, she said, "They misunderstood. That means that their thoughts are inherently dirty." "Don't mind them," said Long Chen. Everyone else scattered, doing whatever they wanted to do. As for Long Chen, he declined Dongfang Yuyang's invitation to a banquet that night. He didn't want any more trouble. He also saw that Dongfang Yuyang was only being polite. It was a token invitation, not sincere at all. Perhaps Long Chen was too domineering and refused to give him face. Long Chen had too many enemies, and if he really went to the banquet, it was likely that no one would be eating. Long Chen also didn't want to deal with those people any more than he had to, let alone eat with them. It was better for him to chat with Yi Zhiqiu. Yi Lingshan accepted the invitation to the banquet, as did Nangong Zuyu and Beitang Rushuang. After all, their status made it so that they had to attend. They represented their powers. They didn't have Long Chen's freedom. Beneath the banyan trees and beside a trickling creek, Yi Zhiqiu and Long Chen quietly sat within a little pavilion. Long Chen lay on Yi Zhiqiu's thigh, using a leaf to cover his eyes. Smelling her fragrance, he felt at peace. "Zhiqiu, do you still remember when we first met?" Long Chen smiled. Yijiqiu rubbed Long Chen's forehead, a trace of warmth appearing in her eyes. Of course I remember. At that time we were still young. We all longed to step into the cultivation world and become the brightest star in people's eyes. We had grand dreams of our names being immortalized throughout history. However, even after so many years, even though our cultivation bases grow ever higher, we have only ended up with more worries and pressure. Yijiqiu sighed. At the beginning of her path, she had thought that as long as her cultivation base was high, she wouldn't have to worry about anything. She could live freely. But now, despite being at a level that she would have never imagined back then, she still didn't feel free. Long Chen held her hand. The pressure is there because we know our duty. It shows that we've matured. We are no longer children just thinking about ourselves. Life is beautiful, but it's definitely not perfect. Troubles will never cease, so we have to get used to it. Yijiqiu took a deep breath. Long Chen, what do you think the difference between growing up and maturing is? Long Chen smiled. Could it be that the Great Ice Fairy doesn't even know this? I'd rather hear your answer. I feel like growing up is just your body getting bigger, getting stronger. As for maturing, it has nothing to do with your age or your body. It's about your experience. Life is full of troubles. After resolving one, another one comes. The more troubles you endure, the more experience you accumulate, and the calmer you'll be. When you encounter trouble, you will think of how to resolve it first, instead of complaining or panicking. Perhaps that is maturing. Then do you feel that you have matured? Me. Long Chen bitterly smiled. Perhaps I'll never be able to mature in this lifetime. I can't even control my own temper. How can such a person possibly be called mature? Yijiqiu nodded. My master said the same thing. She said that you are a contradictory combination of smart and stupid. When you get angry, all your intelligence vanishes. Once you decide on something, no one can change your mind. My master said that for a person to control their own temper is even more difficult than conquering an entire world, so my master wanted me to pass on some words to you. Oh! Long Chen was startled. Daoist Heavenly Feather had actually had Yijiqiu bring him a message? Master said that sometimes people should consider all possible options before making a decision. Perhaps people that should have become enemies could become friends. Throughout all of history, those who could corroborate their Daos and become sovereigns had help from others. The reason the sovereigns were able to become sovereigns was because they united the people's hearts. Everyone heeded their call, causing heaven and earth to acknowledge them as sovereigns. This great era is approaching its end, and the Qi flow eruption is near, but no sovereign sprouts have manifested yet. This may lead to a huge tribulation. At this time, we cannot be fighting amongst ourselves, or will be injured and weak when the outsiders invade. The martial heaven continent's survival sways in the balance. Daoist Heavenly Feather was an ancient expert who had lived countless years. She was able to see things clearly and could tell just how much danger the martial heaven continent was in. In the past great eras, heavenly geniuses rose and competed amongst themselves. From the very start, it was possible to see a few sovereign sprouts. The 5 generations of sovereigns all started showing their talent at the start of the great eras. They had already shown the mannerisms of a sovereign before the Qi flow eruption. There had only been 5 great eras throughout history that had produced the 5 sovereigns and 3 emperors. The Qi flow of the world had gathered within them. As for other eras, there had been hundreds of minor eras without enough Qi flow to produce a sovereign. Geniuses such as Kun Pengzi, Lingfeng, Nangong Zuyu, and the like, had all been born during those minor eras. They hadn't been born during the Great Era, so they were sealed in wait for the Great Era. The Qi flow of the world had changed. This was the greatest tribulation ever. Through the descriptions in some ancient documents, it was estimated that the Qi flow eruption this time would be several times greater than what had ever occurred. Others believed that this might very well be the final Qi flow eruption for the martial heaven continent. It would also be the final great era. All the continent's resources were about to be unleashed, and then it would fully decline until it was destroyed. That was why this was the best era and the worst era for the martial heaven continent. The martial heaven continent would only survive if it could produce history's strongest sovereign. Even though the great era had been here for so long, even though so many heavenly geniuses had been born, there was not one expert who seemed like a sovereign. If this continued, Daoist Heavenly Feather was worried that even before the Dark Era came, the martial heaven continent would be too damaged to fight. Long Chen slowly sat up. Kneeling on the railing, he looked at the fish swimming in the creek, fighting over a piece of food. Actually, there are many instances where understanding things is useless. Your master wants the world to be peaceful, but so what? Is that really possible? No, it's not. True peace can never appear. Competing is the natural instinct of life. Fish compete with other fish, beasts compete with other beasts, and humans compete with other humans. There is a competition of good and bad, light and dark. We cannot escape that as long as we live in this world. Even if a sovereign appeared, it would only be a temporary suppression of this kind of fighting. Once the sovereign is gone, the fighting will start anew. Without a sovereign present, are people going to stop fighting just because I say I want peace? No, that will only make them mock me. So while I understand your master's meaning, I can't do it. Even if I went to that banquet and expressed my good intentions, it wouldn't have any use. Someone who wants to kill me won't let me off just because I lower my head to them once. In fact, going there would make me lose a chance to get stronger. If you want peace, you need the power of a sovereign. Without that level of power, you'll simply be slaughtered. Sorry, Xiezi, I don't want to put you in a bad position. Long Chen looked at Xiezi apologetically. He couldn't try what Daoist Heavenly Feather wanted him to. Xiezi shook her head. Walking over to him, she wrapped an arm around his elbow, looking into his eyes. I was just transmitting my master's words. Now I'm done, and my mission is complete. I've already chosen you. Whether you climb a mountain of blades or go into a sea of fire, I will accompany you. Whether that's right or wrong isn't important. What's important is just that you're beside me. I could die for you once, and I can die for you again. Looking into her clear eyes, Long Chen almost cried. Just what had he done to make a fairy like Xiezi willing to die for him? Thinking about how she had fallen in his arms as her life faded away, his heart ached. Don't worry, I'll get stronger. I won't make the same mistake twice. Even if I can't become a sovereign, I will protect you. I won't let anyone hurt any of you. Long Chen rested both of his hands on Yizhichio's shoulders, swearing. He pulled Yijichio away. Let's go. I want to get my underworld spirit beads. The two of them returned to the auction room. The middle-aged man had said that he would send them to him once they were done counting, but Long Chen had said that he would rather personally go because he was about to quickly spend them all. Oh! Long Chen suddenly came to a sudden stop. An expression of wild delight appeared on his face, and he hugged Yiziki. I'm rich, I'm rich. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.